The most popular girl in class was diagnosed with cancer and asked each of her classmates to give her 1 year of their lifespan. Aloan, if you're not willing to hand it over, then get lost. Just looking at you irritates me. She claimed to have a lifespan sharing system and begged the whole class to bind with her. That last remark really rubbed me the wrong way. Every time I lie alone in this cold hospital room, I feel so scared and helpless. It's not death I fear, but never seeing you all again. The real show is about to begin, and I'm the star of it. If each of you just gives me 1 year of your life, I can keep laughing and causing trouble with you, grow old together, and remain your precious Leora forever. My silence speaks volumes about where I stand. When the time comes, everyone just needs to undergo a simple ceremony of holy light. I caught a glimpse of regret in Leora's eyes. The whole class, young and spirited, thought losing 1 year of their lifespan was no big deal, and they all eagerly agreed without hesitation. Something stirred within me. In my past life, I found the whole thing too bizarre and unsettling, so I ended up leaking the information, so she knows about the system's side effects. As a result, on the day of the ceremony of holy light, all the students were forcibly kept at home by their parents, so no one showed up. She must be upset that I didn't offer her any lifespan. The class beauty died from her illness in bed. Leora has always been jealous of my family's wealth, so she constantly targets me and turns my classmates against me. My classmates were furious. They kidnapped me, dragged me to a desolate wasteland, cursed and beat me, and then tortured me to death. Over time, with her being the center of attention, I became the black sheep that everyone couldn't stand. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn back to the moment when my classmates agreed to bind the system and give their lifespans to the class beauty. Everyone, listen to me. What they didn't know is that the lifespan sharing system was originally called the lifespan sacrifice system. Kale waved his arms and shouted, 1 year of life equals 1 bodily organ. He scanned the circle of classmates and declared, it's fine if Aloan refuses to sacrifice a year of her life. The college entrance exam is in 3 days, so the Radiance consecration ceremony in 2 days must proceed without a hitch. To give the class belle an extra year of life, they had to randomly sacrifice one of their own organs. But what if she leaks what happened today? Our parents would never let us leave the house, then we'd risk losing our dear Leora forever. This time, not only did I keep it a secret, but I also slammed my black card down on the table with a smack. Right. The group snapped out of their daze and closed in around me. I'm willing to buy life for my dear Leora. For every year you give her, I'll pay 100,000. 10 years gets you 1,000,000, and so on. No upper limit. Leora also felt a wave of dread. She hadn't considered that possibility. As I looked at Kale's cold sneer, a sudden realization dawned on me. Even at my worst, I can easily live to 70 or 80. What's the big deal about giving up 1 year? He had been reborn too, you vicious monster. You killed her out of jealousy because Leora was more beloved than you. This never happened in our previous life. Since you murdered Leora, you deserve to die. An eye for an eye, and now drop dead. But his rebirth makes this even better. When Kale ends up disabled, contrasting with the warnings I gave him before, I'm certain his suffering will far exceed anyone else's. When I opened my eyes again, the echoes of my classmates' curses from my past life still haunted me. In my past life, Leora sent me a message right before she died. No sooner had I shaken off the terror than I witnessed my classmates pledging with hands over their hearts to bind themselves to the system, offering their lifespans to the class belle. You bitch, this is all your fault. Even if they gave me an extra year to live, the side effect would just be losing 1 organ. It wouldn't kill me, but you just had to interfere. Still, after I die, they'll definitely make you join me in the grave. Ha ha. Darling Leora, why stand on ceremony with us over a mere year of life? We'd do anything to keep you alive. I showed this message to my classmates at the time, but not a single one believed me. They said I was vicious, that I wouldn't even let the dead rest, and they became increasingly brutal towards me. Once you recover, we'll take the college entrance exams together, attend the same university, and never be parted through all our lives. Suppressing the turmoil inside, I asked, so what do you want to do? Exactly. With 50 classmates each giving you 1 year, you'll live as long as anyone else. Kale was clearly prepared. Swear it. Swear a solemn oath. Keep swearing until we're satisfied. 1 year, I'll give 2. We must ensure our dear Leora lives to 100. The classmates all voiced their agreement. The final remark sparked enthusiastic responses from many classmates. There simply weren't any better alternatives at the moment. I'll pledge 2 years too. At this point, the students hadn't yet lost their beloved mascot, so they hadn't descended into the madness of their previous lives. Count me in as well. All right, I agreed without a moment's hesitation. My grandfather had my fortune told. He said I'd live to be 100. I'll give you 5 years. The class athletic officer blurted out, waving his hands excitedly. Aloan, swear to heaven that if I breathe a word of what happened today, may my parents be struck by lightning and die a gruesome death. class beauty Leora, her eyes welling up with emotion, said, "Thank you, everyone. After the ceremony of holy light, I'll be able to live fully, singing for you, dancing for you, forever your darling Leora, and may my own flesh rot away until I perish in excruciating agony." Instantly, the whole class erupted in cheers, beaming with joy. The room erupted in an uproar. Suddenly, no one expected me to make such a vicious vow. "Hey, Aloan, why are you just standing there without saying a word? Everyone else is eager to contribute. Are you unwilling to give up even 1 year of your life?" Kale fixed a sharp glare on me, his eyes narrowing. The way everyone looked at me had completely changed. The sight of him sent chills down my spine. A heavy silence fell over the crowd. In my past life, after Leora died, he was the one who led the charge to knock me out. Even Kale fell silent, eyeing me with undisguised suspicion. When I came to, my classmates had already dragged me to the middle of nowhere. I was secretly amused. To make matters worse, he happened to be the impoverished student my family was sponsoring. Why would I ever reveal this secret in this lifetime? Because of this, I gave him special attention at school, which led Kale to mistakenly believe I had feelings for him. As a result, he started talking down to me and ordering me around. How could I possibly be satisfied without watching them reap what they've sown? I tried to explain to Kale that he had the wrong idea, but he simply wouldn't believe me. Not only that, but I'm willing to add fuel to the fire. Being broad-minded, I just laughed it off and didn't press the matter further. Everyone stopped paying attention to me. Little did I know that in the end, it would be this very person, the one I'd been helping all along, who would personally push me into hell. They began to gather around Leora, showering her with concern and affection. At that thought, my gaze turned icy. Before I could speak, Leora had already begun sobbing. "Thank you all for holding me so dear in your hearts and loving me so much. Leora is truly moved," she said, her worries easing as she cast her gaze upon her classmates, once again adopting a teary-eyed expression. "I beg everyone, please don't give Aloan a hard time. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions. Even if we disagree, we can still show respect." "Sweetheart Leora, don't say that. As our beloved mascot, you deserve to be treated like one. Leora, can't possibly make everyone like me. After all, it's a year of one's life. It's only natural if someone is unwilling." "Exactly, no more talking. Hurry up and link your system with ours." She bit her pale lips, putting on a pitiful and delicate act. "Right, once the connection is established and we confirm the years of life we're transferring, we'll perform the sacred illumination ceremony. You'll become the beautiful little angel we all adore again." Her sickly sweet words instantly threw me into the eye of the storm. Overjoyed, Leora nodded repeatedly. In an instant, my classmates rose up in fury, glaring at me with burning eyes. I watched with a cold eye, sneering inwardly. "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." That's exactly the kind of person Leora is. "Spit it out. Are you willing or not?" She was just about to speak when I cut her off. "She's a delicate young miss. Her precious life is far too valuable. Look at her pathetic orphan act. She's clearly not going to agree. Hold on. Besides, she's always been insanely jealous of our darling Leora and loves stirring up trouble. Getting her to help our precious baby. Not a chance." I let out a sharp cry. "But it doesn't matter anyway. With all the life force we've gathered, Leora will live long enough. Her contribution is completely unnecessary." "Aloan, are you out of your mind? Starting trouble again? If you don't want to give up your lifespan, fine. But why are you barking like a dog here? Why haven't you scrammed yet? Yeah, get lost already. Are you trying to sabotage our system binding and get Leora killed indirectly? You really are a dog that can't stop eating crap." The students started talking over each other, launching another round of personal attacks against me. Leora's eyes filled with anxiety, worried I might stir up trouble and complicate the situation. The looks everyone was giving me grew increasingly hostile. Kale looked ready to throw a punch. I forced down my anger and explained, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. While I'm not willing to give a year of my life to Leora, I do want to contribute in my own way." Kale gave me a strange look. "What kind of contribution?" I immediately pulled out my black card and slapped it on the table. "I may not be willing to give my lifespan, but I've got money. I'm willing to buy Leora more time." Leora's eyes lit up, looking at me with eager anticipation. The others looked utterly bewildered, unable to grasp my meaning. I declared with resounding conviction, "For every year of life you give Leora, you can take $100,000 from me. This applies cumulatively, with no upper limit." At these words, the room fell into complete silence. Some students from less privileged backgrounds had a gleam in their eyes, clearly tempted by the offer. 100,000 a year would add up to 1 million in 10 years. In today's society, if you come from a poor family and have mediocre grades, could you really earn 1 million in 10 years? That's just wishful thinking, utterly impossible. The poorest student in the class was the first to shout out. staring at my black card with a greedy expression. Aloan, are you serious? I remember this classmate vividly. In my past life, they kicked me in the head at least 8 times. I nodded arrogantly. A promise is a promise. Deal. The student rushed to Leora's side eagerly. Leora, darling, quick, let's bind. I want to give you 20 years of my lifespan. At this moment, even Leora was stunned, completely dumbfounded. But urged on by her classmate, Leora immediately set the system into motion. Classmate Jackson, binding successful, voluntarily granting the host 20 years of lifespan, as if to convince everyone of its existence. The system thoughtfully played a notification sound for all to hear. Money. Classmate Jackson rushed to my side, eyes bloodshot as he thrust out his palm toward me. A smirk curled my crimson lips as I pulled out my phone and dialed the bank. In no time, Jackson's account was credited with $2 million. Jackson trembled with excitement. His gaze toward me no longer held the usual disdain but carried a hint of gratitude. With a piercing gaze, I scanned the crowd and declared, next. The classmates saw the real money in Jackson's account. They were all breathing heavily. In an instant, a long queue formed right in front of Leora. Those who successfully completed the binding, come to me immediately to collect your payment. I didn't hesitate either, paying out the full amount according to the lifespan transferred, 20-year. 15-year, 10-year sentences, those are the most common. Those from relatively well-off families got 3 to 5 years. They're still students after all. Even if their families are wealthy, they don't have much spending money themselves. Once the college entrance exams are over, having hundreds of thousands in your pocket, now that's living the high life. The class athletic monitor takes the crown for sheer audacity. He's clearly bought into his grandfather's fortune-telling hook. Line and sinker, convinced he's destined to live to 100, he generously gifted me 30 years of his lifespan and walked away with $3 million from me. Leora was beside herself with laughter. She couldn't do anything but laugh, completely speechless. Exactly, who would ever complain about living too long? She could probably live for centuries now. The thought made Leora want to burst into song, but she restrained herself given the circumstances. Kale was the last one to bind with the system. Classmate Kale, binding successful, voluntarily grants the host 1 year of lifespan. As soon as the system announcement sounded, all the classmates turned to him with astonished looks. It's worth noting that Kale was Leora's most devoted simp, yet, he ended up being the one who gave the least. Hurry up and pay. After binding the system, he walked up to me, recited his bank account number, and said impatiently. I sneered coldly, pay for what, you cheap bastard? You're always full of big talk, but when it really counts, you're the one who contributes the least lifespan. I bet all that affection you showed Leora before was just an act, wasn't it? You. Kale started getting flustered. I didn't give him any chance to argue back, pressing my advantage right in his face. Don't you me? Actions speak louder than words. Even the classmate who gave the least contributed 3 years of their lifespan, and I maxed out my card for Leora. We've all made tremendous sacrifices, but you casually tossed in a single year like it was nothing. Kale, you're nothing but a selfish bastard, that little shit. If he hadn't led the charge to kidnap me in our past life, I would never have died so horribly, so I didn't want to miss any chance to give him a hard time. The moment I finished speaking, all the students, including Leora, looked at him with utter disdain. Aloan's right. If you're giving away a year of life, you shouldn't ask for money. How embarrassing is that? You're always so eager to ask us to take care of your precious Leora. But when it's your turn, seriously, what a joke. Honestly, I think we've all misjudged Aloan. The fact that she was willing to spend tens of millions for Leora's sake shows she's someone who values relationships deeply. Looking back now, it seems you were the one stirring the pot and making us misunderstand her all along. Bite the hand that feeds you, and you'll find yourself without a meal. If you've taken my money, it's only natural you'd speak up for me. Kale was absolutely fuming at the crowd's mockery and taunts, but there was nothing he could do except glare at me with pure venom. He never expected me to turn the tables, nor that his classmates would stop having his back. He rushed over to Leora in a panic. Leora, darling, don't listen to this bitch's nonsense. You know I've always treated you the best. Suddenly, the system's notification chime cut him off. Congratulations, host, you have obtained 587 years of bound lifespan. In an instant, the scene fell into a deathly silence. Everyone stood frozen in place. The year 587. Their faces began shifting with uncertainty as they fell into hushed silence. The students' eyes turned green with envy when they looked at Leora. An overwhelming sense of jealousy began to uncontrollably take root in everyone's hearts. I watched coldly from the sidelines, sneering inwardly. After jealousy came greed. I'm really curious, is Leora still their favorite in the group? Leora clearly sensed something was off. Her eyes darted around, and she said, classmates, I have some great news. The system said that after helping me extend my life, it will randomly select one of you as the next host within a month. The room immediately erupted in an uproar. Truly the group's darling. Everyone took her words at face value. They were all fired up, faces flushed with excitement, each dreaming of becoming the next lucky one. Seeing that she had calmed everyone down, Leora finally breathed a sigh of relief. Damn, she's really got some tricks up her sleeve, I thought to myself with admiration. The most miserable one had to be Kale, watching me walk away, grinding his teeth in frustration. He's the unluckiest one, lost a year of his life for nothing and didn't get a single penny. The classmates went wild with excitement, heading out arm in arm to spend their newfound fortune. Aloan, stop right there. Kale caught up with me. I replied coldly, what is it? Do you need something? His gaze remained fixed on my face, as if searching for clues, before he finally said, have you been reborn too? I frowned. Reborn? I don't understand what you're talking about. Kale looked at my innocent expression, his heart filled with mixed emotions. He truly had been reborn. His greatest wish in this life was to keep Leora alive. Now, by throwing money around and driving everyone into a frenzy of offering their lifespans, my attitude was completely different from my previous life. While it fulfilled his wish, it also sent chills down his spine. Because he remembered the message from Leora that I had shown everyone to prove my innocence in my past life. The message clearly stated that extending one's lifespan by a year required the sacrifice of a bodily organ. Kale grew anxious and fearful. He couldn't help but suspect that the message was genuine, and that my actions were a deliberate act of revenge against everyone. So, to be on the safe side, he offered the minimum, just 1 year of lifespan. All right, don't speak to me ever again. Someone as stingy as you doesn't deserve to be my classmate, let alone join us in doting on our precious Leora. I mocked him with the same sarcastic tone Kale used to use, driving him absolutely furious. I ignored him completely, and his venomous glare didn't faze me in the slightest, because over a dozen bodyguards my dad had arranged were already in position up ahead. My bodyguards will stick to me like glue until these people burn in hell. In this life, nothing matters more than staying alive. Just then, my dad's call came through. Aloan, what did you buy for over 50 million? Dad asked gently, with a chuckle in his voice. My heart swelled with warmth, but then I remembered my tragic death in my previous life. With tears welling in my eyes, I said in a coquettish tone, I played a little game with my classmates and lost. Oh, that's no problem. I'll deposit another 100 million into your card later. Spend it however you like. 2 nights later. A deserted rural elementary school, a coach bus pulled into the playground. The students carried Leora, who was wearing a white dress, as they filed out of the vehicle. Sweetheart Leora, let's get started. It's almost time to witness the miracle. I finally managed to sneak out, but with the college entrance exam tomorrow, I'll have to go back and study soon. Right. But the most important thing is, which student will the system choose as the next host? I'm so excited. What's the rush? Didn't Leora say the system has a 1-month trial period? Just do your best. Standing at a distance, I watched my classmates eagerly preparing themselves, a smile spreading across my face. The system is choosing a new master. You can't trust a word Leora says. Soon, everyone except me formed a circle, surrounding Leora. Leora was trembling with excitement. The system's alert tone sounded once again. The Radiance consecration ceremony begins now. The moment the announcement ended, a circle of white light emanated from Leora's body and instantly enveloped all the students. Noticing Kale's nervous expression, I let out a contemptuous chuckle. He's probably still hung up on that message from Leora in his past life. The next moment, something bizarre happened. The white light briefly touched the students before swiftly retreating. The returning white light carried visible traces of blood. The amount of blood tinge varied from person to person. The most prominent was seen with the class athletic officer, the faintest with Kale. Squinting, I began to understand. The white light returned and completely merged into Leora's body. In an instant, Leora, who had been deathly pale, rose abruptly from her wheelchair. Not only did her complexion glow and her posture straighten, but her beauty and aura had also elevated by several levels. Even someone like me, a wealthy girl raised in luxury, felt utterly inadequate standing before her. It seems what was given wasn't just a life, it was far more than that. Leora, darling, you're truly healthy now. It's absolutely amazing. Oh my God, Leora, sweetheart, you're so beautiful. You're simply divine. Even celebrities can't compare to you. The classmates gathered around Leora, laughing and joking in a lively commotion, as if things had returned to how they used to be. Only I remained frowning, knowing full well that things weren't that simple, because, at the moment, all the classmates were perfectly fine, with nothing out of the ordinary happening. There's no gain without some kind of. I've always believed that the universe maintains its balance. Kale rushed up to me with exhilaration written all over his face, sneering unabashedly. Just as I thought, you were deceiving us in your past life too. You'll always be that wicked seed of evil. We've treated our dear Leora so well, there's no way she would ever harm us." As he spoke, he gleefully slapped his perfectly intact body with both hands, overjoyed. For the past couple of days, he had been living in constant fear, terrified that he might end up disabled after the radiance of sanctification ceremony. At this moment, he finally let go of his burdens. "My congratulations to you," I replied with detached indifference, then returned to the Maybach parked at the school gate. My gaze fixed motionlessly on the crowd in the playground. Leora began to dance and sing for everyone. The cheers grew louder and louder, wave after wave. Finally, after more than an hour, everyone had returned to the bus and began the journey back. My Maybach followed closely behind, tailing them all the way. As time went on, my brow furrowed deeper and deeper. About halfway through the journey, the driver suddenly spoke up. "Miss, on the way here I noticed a mudslide warning sign ahead. I'll get through that section as quickly as possible, so please hold on tight, and you should probably warn your classmates to be careful too." My confusion instantly vanished, my eyes lighting up as I urgently said, "Stop the car." The car came to a halt, and my eyes were fixed on the bus ahead from which music was playing. Not far in front of the bus, I could make out the general situation with the help of the headlights. A mudslide warning sign stood by the roadside. Behind the warning sign, there was a small accumulation of mud and rocks. Up to the left was a steep slope of tawny mudstone. To the right of the road lay a sheer cliff with a dramatic drop. Could it be? As the bus continued onward, a deafening roar erupted without warning, shaking everyone to the core. Suddenly, the mud and rocks on the mountainside to the left of the bus collapsed without any sign, sending several massive boulders tumbling down amidst the soil. Bang! Several stones as tall as a person smashed mercilessly into the side of the bus. In an instant, the bus tilted and plunged over the cliff to the right. "So that's how it is." Laughing hysterically inside, I got off the bus and shouted, "Uncle driver, call the police quickly. My classmates have fallen off the cliff." System. The whole city was in an uproar. A bus carrying students about to take the college entrance exams plunged off a cliff. This is an absolutely devastating tragedy. Emergency services rushed to the scene immediately. Journalists and social media influencers swarmed to the scene. Parents rushed over upon hearing the news, wailing in despair as grief engulfed the sight. Teachers and school administrators also arrived in succession. The darkness of night significantly hampered rescue efforts. Fortunately, the cliff wasn't too high, so there's a chance the students survived. Major platforms have all started live streaming the rescue operation, instantly. This incident shot to the top of trending searches, gripping the hearts of countless people. As time went on, we've rescued one person, a young woman. She's completely unharmed and hasn't sustained any injuries. The crowd erupted in cheers. I took a closer look and realized it was none other than Leora. She was crying uncontrollably, tears streaming down her face like raindrops on pear blossoms, while screaming non-stop, "Don't worry about me. Go save my classmates first, please," sobbing. That single plea instantly won countless praises and gained massive followers on the live stream. The chat immediately flooded with comments. "What a kind soul, even in this situation. Their first thought was to save others. Truly admirable, absolutely. And she's so stunning, even celebrities don't compare. I'm a fan now. I hope the other students are just as safe and sound as she is." But fate had other plans. The second person rescued turned out to be Kale. He stared at his left leg with hollow eyes, howling in despair as if life had lost all meaning. Hidden in the shadows, I watched his plight and began laughing soundlessly. His left foot was mangled beyond recognition, a pulpy mess of flesh and blood. Amputation is inevitable. In the live stream, so tragic, can't bear to watch. Poor kid. Countless words of sympathy offered Kale no comfort. He finally succumbed to the harsh reality and passed out. As time went on, one by one, the students were rescued. They all had missing limbs, broken bones, blinded eyes, or severed ears. Without exception, the number of missing organs perfectly matched the years of life given away. It's hard to imagine the horrific state of students who sacrificed 20 or 30 years of their lifespan. Meanwhile, Leora was surrounded by reporters. Her tears never ceased flowing from start to finish. Every time she saw a classmate being carried out, she would call out their name, then break down in tears, weeping with such profound sorrow that it moved everyone present. "Aloan," Leora's sudden cry cut through my overwhelming joy. "Aloan, you're safe too, thank goodness. I almost forgot you weren't in our bus, so you didn't go over the cliff." She stumbled toward me, threw her arms around me in a tight embrace, and sobbed uncontrollably. That's when everyone realized there was still one student completely unscathed. Upon hearing Leora's words and spotting the Maybach behind her, their expressions turned peculiar. She wasn't in the same vehicle as the other students, which is why she didn't plunge down the cliff. Is it because she's wealthy enough to ride in a Maybach that she can't be bothered sharing a car with classmates? Alohan's face showed no trace of sorrow, standing in stark contrast to Leora, who was utterly heartbroken. At this thought, everyone present began to look at me with disgust. Conspiracy theories started swirling in the live stream chat. Some even speculated whether I had anything to do with the bus crash. I could see right through Leora's act. She was clearly stirring up trouble and trying to turn people against me. But I kept my composure and replied coolly, "Leora, stop crying. Tears won't save our classmates. I've already contacted my father. Everyone will be treated at our family's hospital free of charge. He's also secured ample medical resources to ensure every student receives full care." Leora was immediately speechless. The people around us began to look at me with newfound respect. All my earlier suspicions just vanished into thin air. Exactly, crying won't solve a thing. What really matters is being able to help our classmates in tangible ways. My popularity skyrocketed in an instant, but I turned and walked away without answering any questions. Everyone suddenly understood. No wonder we hadn't seen any sadness on her face earlier. It turns out Alohan, though reserved in demeanor, has a heart full of passion. Seeing me safe and sound, Leora felt a pang of disappointment and could only continue crying uncontrollably. There was no other way. This was the only thing she could do now. The next day, before stepping into the exam hall, she faced a barrage of cameras from the reporters. Leora's eyes welled up, but she fought back the tears. My heart ached so terribly. How I wish everything that happened last night was just a nightmare. They should have been standing here with me. She eventually wiped away her fallen tears. But no matter what, I must finish this journey for them. Everyone, please keep my classmates in your prayers. And give me just a little bit of encouragement too, okay? I'll carry the light from all of us to illuminate this examination hall. Thank you, everyone." After these words were spoken, they drew countless rounds of applause. Standing in the crowd, I watched her performance with a silent smile, then stepped into the examination hall ahead of others to face the most pivotal moment of my life. At the same time, the hospital held a press conference. It is with deep regret that I inform you that over half of the students have lost their lives. This news came as no surprise to the public, who could only mourn in silence for the departed. Last night, many people were reduced to piles of mangled flesh. Not even divine intervention could have saved them. Naturally, these students were the ones who sacrificed the most years of their lives, so it follows that they would offer up the most organs. After the college entrance exams concluded, Leora opened a TikTok account and gained 1 million followers daily. She rushed to the hospital with bubbling excitement, ready to film the first video for her account. She was determined to stick to her caring classmate persona till the very end. "Get the hell out of here, you bitch. If I hadn't gone to perform that damn ritual to extend your life, would I have lost an eye? Would all my limbs be broken? My entire life is ruined. Don't you get it?" In the hospital room, the class representative was snarling viciously at Leora, who had just stepped inside. He lost his left eye and had all 4 limbs amputated. Lying in the hospital bed, he endured endless suffering. Leora was stunned for a moment, then her eyes welled up with tears. This was all an accident. Who could have predicted a mudslide? It's a natural disaster. I'm your precious Leora. How can you speak to me like that? It breaks my heart. The class monitor's veins bulged instantly, his one remaining eye bloodshot, as he snarled with hatred, "Precious my ass, get the hell out of here, or I'll get up and bite you to death." Left with no choice, Leora fled in utter disarray, stepping out of the ward. Her eyes brimmed with venomous resentment and schadenfreude, but she quickly composed herself and entered the next room. She refused to believe all her classmates would turn against her because of this. The system had executed everything flawlessly. The accident had absolutely nothing to do with Leora. In the second ward, a classmate who still had one functioning arm smashed a teacup against her head. In that moment, Leora understood. Such is human nature. Everyone still placed the blame squarely on her. After all, the root of it all lay in that illumination ceremony. I'm no longer the center of attention, but that's okay. I can become the internet's darling instead. Yet, after 3 years of being doted on by her classmates, a lingering sense of discontent remained. She sought out her most devoted admirer, Kale. But Kale only made her feel more uneasy. Kale stared at her from start to finish, expressionless and silent, like a living corpse. Leora didn't dare say a word and ran away, watching her retreating figure. I smiled meaningfully and entered Kale's hospital room. "In our past life, you killed me, and then both you and I were reborn," Kale said in a low voice, just as I suspected. I curled my lips into a smirk. "Tell me, is there any chance you could be reborn one more time, in an instant?" Kale's eyes lit up, and a murderous gleam surged in his gaze as he looked at me, but the moment he spotted the bodyguards who had suddenly appeared behind me, his fire instantly died out. He knew full well that in this lifetime, killing me was simply impossible. I wouldn't give him another chance. But Kale gazed in the direction where Leora had disappeared. I couldn't help but chuckle at the sight. Time flew by, and half a year passed in the blink of an eye. A shocking piece of news has rocked the internet. Leora, hailed as the most beautiful top scholar, an earthly angel, and the goddess of kindness, has gone missing. No trace of her alive, no trace of her body. Inside an abandoned warehouse in the desolate wilderness, Leora lay on the ground, bound and gagged with a foul sock, her eyes filled with boundless terror. Around her, a group of crippled figures stared at her like malevolent ghosts. Who else could these people be but my surviving classmates? Kale, according to what you said, in our past life we killed Aloan to avenge Leora. Leora knew full well that sharing a year of life required sacrificing an organ, yet she still maliciously bound us to the system, and that Aloan, she's been reborn just like you. The money she's spending is buying our lives to avenge her past self. The class monitor slumped in her wheelchair, glaring viciously at Leora on the ground with a twisted expression. I believe Kale. Everything he said checks out. I gave 5 years of my life, and now I've lost all 4 limbs and an eye. I gave 3 years of my life, so I lost an ear, an arm, and a leg. I gave up 4 years of my life, lost both my hands and legs, and became a human stump. Every single survivor matched without exception. Kale leaned on his crutches, his eyes wild with madness. Since my classmates believe in me, why not take a gamble? How do we bet? In our past life, we killed Aloan, and both she and I were reborn. If we kill Leora in this life, will we be reborn again? If I'm reborn once more, by then I'll have seen through everything and will definitely step up to protect our classmates. The classmates burst into laughter upon hearing this, causing a chorus of eerie howls and wails. All right, all right. Our lives are already ruined. Living is worse than dying. We have to take this gamble. Yeah, let's kill Leora first. If she doesn't get reborn, then we'll figure out how to take down Aloan. I just want a second chance at life. Sob, we're all crippled, and she gets to live over 500 years. Damn right she's the one who has to die. Hurry, everyone, let's do this together. I can't wait any longer. With that, a group of people toppled from their wheelchairs, hopping on one foot. Crawling, or writhing, about 20 figures moved toward Leora with twisted, mutilated postures, like vengeful demons from hell. Leora's body was mangled beyond recognition, a fate even more gruesome than my previous life. This scene was captured by a pinhole camera and transmitted directly to my phone. I, Aloan, as an upright individual. A bunch of lunatics were kidnapping and killing people in the abandoned warehouse I bought. Calling the police was my only option. All those useless classmates of mine got arrested, with both witnesses and physical evidence secured. They're now facing the full force of the law. As for how much social controversy Leora might stir up, that's none of my concern. I arrived at the prison, here to visit my classmates, broken in body but unbroken in spirit. I found Kale first, as I faced his venomous glare. A voice only he could hear suddenly emanated from within me. Classmate Kale, binding successful. The host has forcibly claimed 50 years of your lifespan, effective in 1 month. The familiar system chime rang out. In an instant, Kale pointed at me with a terrified shriek, his face turning ghostly pale as his whole body trembled violently. The pungent smell of urine followed immediately. The guy literally pissed himself in fear. I pointed to my own nose and said with a cheerful smile, I don't know why, but it found me. And it seems to have leveled up. No sooner had the words been spoken than Kale collapsed to the ground, feeling nothing but sheer terror that made his skin crawl and his scalp tingle. I stood up and left. Time to visit the next classmate. Story 2. During my decade-long seclusion for recovery, my dear disciples took the liberty of accepting a final apprentice for me. They showered all their affection on this youngest sister, making her the beloved mascot of our mystic sect. It's not like they're losing out anyway. Everything they took belonged to my star apprentice Clara, so when I stepped out and found everything had changed, I let out a piercing shriek. Where's Clara? Where's my darling Clara? The valley was eerily quiet when I emerged from seclusion. Not a single disciple remained of those who'd vowed to keep me company daily. Never mind, a decade is too long, no harm in being a little lax. With this thought, I consoled myself. I immediately headed for the forest, where I lived with my disciples. When I saw all 6 disciples gathered around the table, chatting and laughing merrily, my heart settled, convinced their bond would truly stand the test of time. Then the sole female cultivator turned around, a complete stranger to me. Yet the spiritual roots, magical artifacts, even the robes she wore, all belonged to Clara. Out of 6 disciples, the one missing was my dearest Clara. A bad feeling crept in, and I immediately stepped forward to ask, where's Clara? My 5 dear disciples froze when they recognized me, too guilty to utter a word. Instead, this female cultivator stepped forward, eyeing me with undisguised scrutiny. Senior sister, have you come to Violetwood Grove to demand answers? Whatever grievance you hold, directed at me, spare these brothers from trouble. Though I'd done nothing yet, her voice suddenly lost its edge. Pressing a handkerchief to her lips, she coughed lightly. The blindingly white fabric revealing faint streaks of blood. Senior Clara was right to reprimand me. It's my fault. Our senior brother only meant to discipline her. If this displeases you, sister, I'll kneel before you. Please don't take it out on him. Perhaps proximity to the ground made pretense unnecessary. She suddenly vomited dark blood and collapsed unconscious. Do you take me for a 3-year-old with these tricks? Not a single internal injury. And even has magical artifacts to replenish energy, and yet you're coughing up blood. How amusing. This act won't work on me, but it's perfect for those 5 idiots. The 5 who'd been playing dumb immediately panicked and swarmed around the unconscious person. Junior sister, are you all right? Wake up, don't scare us like this. We'll take you back to your room right now, where some showed her concern. Others clearly held grievances against me. My second disciple, playing the elder brother, chided me with a reproachful tone. Master, Lilith is your disciple too. How could you treat her this way? Since when do disciples address their master as equals? I drove my foot straight into his knee, sending him crashing to the ground. The pain must have been excruciating. His face twisted into a grimace, giving him an icy glare. I'd run out of patience. Last chance. Where's Clara? The Immortals' Fall Cave. What? How dare you throw someone into that accursed place? Seeing my genuine fury, my second disciple ignored the pain in his legs as he knelt on the ground. He grabbed my sleeve and began explaining. Wasn't it our senior sister who tried to kill our junior? Shouldn't such a merciless disciple face punishment? He was too damn irritating. I kicked him clear across the courtyard. The remaining 4 disciples stayed silent, but the hatred in their eyes spoke volumes. They thought exactly the same, ignoring them. I drew my sword and rushed toward the Immortals' Fall Cave. If I weren't in such a hurry to save Clara, those bastards would be dead men walking. True to its name, even an immortal wouldn't last more than a few days in that cursed cavern. That might be an exaggeration, but a novice cultivator like Clara stands no chance against the cave's vengeful spirits. Defying the magical onslaught, I scoured the cavern with an orb of condensed spiritual energy, searching desperately for Clara. After what felt like an eternity, I finally found her unconscious form in the deepest recesses. One more step, and she would have plunged into the bottomless abyss, gone without a trace, forever. Beneath the rage, I felt a glimmer of relief, relieved I'd emerged from seclusion early, before Clara's grave grew weeds taller than me to mourn over. Without another thought, I scooped Clara up and rushed toward the forest. The ice bed I'd procured for her years ago could perfectly preserve her fading spiritual energy to sustain life. As I passed the front yard, I gave it a quick glance but didn't spot those 6 troublesome pests. To my utter surprise, they'd all gathered in Clara's room. The disciple called Lilith lay moaning weakly on the ice bed. Between coughs, she kept scolding the 5 watchdogs by her bedside. Elders, Master didn't mean it. Don't blame her, she's just worried sick about senior sister's safety. When she returns, I'll kneel at her door and beg for forgiveness. Beg for what? The notoriously hot-tempered 6th disciple spat in contempt. She's always favored senior sister, even after seclusion. Has she forgotten who's been maintaining the purple fir grove all this time? None other than second brother. The named second disciple remained silent, accepting the flattery without protest. Master raised us with great effort, so let's let it slide this time. But if he ever bullies junior sister Lilith like this again, I'll stake my reputation as an inner disciple to demand justice. Exactly. If Master favors senior sister, then we'll just have to look after Lilith more ourselves. Now that senior sister has backing, she'll surely escalate her cruelty toward Lilith. Starting today, we must take turns guarding Lilith to keep her safe. If only senior sister would perish in the Immortals' Fall Cave. She tried to murder Lilith outright. That we haven't retaliated already shows remarkable sect loyalty. Disgusting remarks. I unleashed my full power, sending all 5 flying out of the house with a single palm strike. The sound of coughing blood and frantic door pounding erupted. Master, don't hurt Lilith. If you lay a single finger on Lilith today, I'll have my revenge even if it means being branded a Master Slayer. If Master finds us so displeasing, why not let us leave with Lilith? Then no one in the Violet Grove will serve you ever again. I'll go find the sect leader. He'll surely stop you. Listening to these laughable threats, I remember how devout they looked, kneeling before me one by one, begging me to lead them away from this mortal world. They vowed to serve me with filial piety, promising to love senior sister Clara as their own flesh and blood, yet their love has reduced Clara, once fair and plump before my seclusion, to a gaunt shadow of herself, covered in wounds, and their piety has turned me, their preaching master, into nothing but a cruel tyrant. What filial piety? Sarcastic tone. I shot Lilith a glare, and without a word, she scrambled off the bed to kneel. Her 5 watchdogs couldn't help her, nor would she dare defy me. I placed Clara on the ice bed and channeled spiritual energy to protect her vital meridians. Only after confirming she was unharmed did I turn my attention to the 3rd person in the room, sensing my gaze. Lilith respectfully kowtowed to me. Honored master, your disciple pays respects. When I joined the sect last year, you were in seclusion, so these formalities must be observed today. What? Do I look like someone who craves bowing from others? The Mystic Gate is a prestigious cultivation sect, where even elite disciples fight tooth and nail for limited spots. As the youngest elder here, I certainly don't lack people groveling at my feet. Lilith clearly realized this and started playing her usual damsel in distress act on me again. Master, it's all Lilith's fault. I understand how my arrival at Violetwood Grove made senior sister jealous. Seeing how the brothers doted on me more than her, she has every right to resent me, and I should bear it all. Tears came without warning, like the muggy, clinging downpours of the rainy season, utterly redundant. I gave a cold laugh and beckoned to her. She scrambled frantically on all fours. Crawling to the bedside on her knees, I sat there, tilting her chin up with the tip of my sword. The razor-sharp blade left a thin crimson line on her cheek before I even applied pressure. Master, it hurts. She made me laugh. A booming chuckle that carried through the wooden door for all outside to hear. Relaxed sighs kept drifting through the door as Lilith, thinking she'd won my favor, kept inching closer to my legs. How about being Master's little ray of sunshine from now on, Lilith? 2, TCH. I'm laughing because a mere scratch makes you whimper. What do you do when I carve out your spirit bone? My sudden cruelty froze Lilith momentarily before she scrambled backward like she'd seen a demon. She kept muttering as she crawled. Master, I'm your disciple too. How could you treat me this way? If she can do this to others, why can't I do the same to her? That makes no sense. So I stood up and advanced step by step toward her retreating figure, only when I pinned her thigh under my foot. Immobilizing her completely, did I deliver the kick, leaving her sprawled on the ground at my mercy. Mind your tongue in the future, youngster. I never accepted your apprenticeship rights. This lifetime holds no misfortune of being your master. As I spoke, my eyes casually swept across the room. There sat a wooden carving that clearly didn't belong to Clara. I didn't care what the carving depicted. It was Lilith's possession. This had no place in Clara's room, so I smashed her head open, leaving a bloody hole. Bone extraction hurts. Bite down on this if you can't take it. The person beneath my boot writhed violently, their face twisted in agony. Sage, you damn bitch, who made you an elder of the mystic sect? All I did was take Clara's spiritual root. What gives you the right to carve out my marrow bone? Lilith's insults and interrogations couldn't awaken my conscience. They only excited me more. Oh, finally dropped the act. That's more like you. You wanted Clara's spiritual roots, and I've taken a liking to your marrow bones. Consider it payment. No more words. My blade split her spine in one clean stroke. Channeled spiritual energy kept her blood from painting the floor. Besides, I never meant to take her life. Without the spirit bone, worst case I'll be bedridden for life. Her dear senior brothers will take good care of her. They already spoil able-bodied people like invalids. Imagine how they'd dote on an actual cripple. The sword strike drew a blood-curdling shriek from Lilith, scattering all winged and four-legged creatures from the violet woods. It also reignited the frenzied barking of those dogs outside that had only just quieted down. Sage, I forbid you to harm Lilith. Open this door now and let us in. The Grandmaster is already on his way. I suggest you start explaining yourself properly, unless you want to be sent back into seclusion the moment you've just emerged. Having a master like you is my greatest shame. You harm the innocent and blindly favor that venomous witch Clara. May you all die wretched deaths. I curse you to suffer the same fate as all those you've wronged. No happy ending awaits you. The day I defeat you, I'll tear you limb from limb. You can't even break through a casually erected barrier, yet you dare threaten to kill me. I must have been too lenient with them before, letting them take advantage of my kindness. I'll settle scores with them later. For now, tuning out distractions as I begin my bone purification ritual. This marrow cleaning requires precision. Too much force could sever the spiritual meridians intertwined within. Progress must be measured inch by deliberate inch. The one beneath the blade writhes in excruciating agony, while the wielder suffers no less, especially for a novice like me. Every cut demands utmost caution. Lilith let out a single shriek at my first strike, then lay still as a gutted fish, seems halfway to the grave already. After I'd repositioned the spirit bones onto Clara and waited for them to fully integrate, I suddenly realized 8 hours had slipped away. The entire world lay deep in midnight slumber, all except the bustling mystic gate. I checked Lilith's breathing, still a faint pulse, gave her a day's worth of spiritual energy to stabilize her vitals, though I did strip her of everything she had, the temperature-regulating golden robe, the pouch filled with rare elixirs, those priceless life-saving artifacts, all originally gifts I'd given Clara, better destroyed than letting outsiders benefit. After packing everything, I opened the door. Whoever treasures Lilith will come to claim her. When the door opened, I thought my eyes deceived me. Nearly every inner disciple of the mystic sect had drawn their swords against me. Even the usually pragmatic sect master couldn't resist meddling in this affair. Sage, you've grown even more reckless since emerging from seclusion. Absurd. He condemned me without even asking why I was furious. I've got a mouth, so of course I clapped back. When my disciple gets bullied, as her master, I'll damn well stand up for her, but we're your disciples too, just like Lilith. The usually proud fourth disciple shouted, visibly struggling to hold back tears. The surrounding disciples were deeply moved by his plight and voiced their agreement in unison. Elder Sage, I've spent over a decade in the mystic sect and witnessed how you favored certain disciples before your seclusion. You procured countless magical artifacts and herbs for Clara, yet denied even basic wound salves to other injured juniors. Clara's been bullying them for years. They were absolutely justified in teaching her a lesson. Elder, you wouldn't know this. Right after Lilith arrived at the Violetwood Grove during your seclusion, Clara abandoned her in the back mountains. That place swarms with demons. We searched for 2 days before finding Lilith. Had she not been clever, she wouldn't have survived. Indeed, Elder, senior sister Clara resorted to dirty tricks during the last tournament, leaving Lilith severely injured. We knew she acted out of shame for losing to a junior, so we merely had her compensate Lilith with her sword. What a relentless string of malice. We took everything Clara possessed and gave it to Lilith. My fury grew with every word until I unleashed an energy blast that sent them all flying. His authority as sect leader was challenged. Enraged, he bellowed, Sage, have you lost your mind? I ignored him, simply stepping aside to clear the doorway. If you want her to live, stop wasting my time with words. My reminder finally made everyone notice junior sister Lilith's presence in the room. 2 close female disciples rushed in, only to scream in horror upon touching Lilith's boneless state. Sect Master, Lilith's spiritual bones have been extracted. If their previous accusations carried resentment, now their gazes burned with murderous hatred toward me. My senior brother of decades glared at me with eyes wide in fury. His sword was already poised at my heart, ready to pierce through me in an instant. I wasn't idle either, swinging my blade to parry his life-bound sword. Senior brother, have you forgotten how you became sect leader? He understood my threat, suppressing his rage with visible effort. With a disdainful snort, he ordered his inner disciples to carry Lilith away. My 5 disciples attempted to follow, but I blocked their path. Sage, from this day forth we renounce you. You'll never call us disciples again. 3. The 6th disciple who kept yelling was the most disobedient, so I straight up slapped him across the face. The blow sent stars dancing before his eyes as he tumbled head over heels across the ground. He still glared at me with pure hatred, but fear of another beating kept him silent. When I throw hands, I throw them for real. Seeing me strike the man, the sect master regained his composure and hastily led his disciples out of the purple cedar grove. I wasn't holding back when I hit him. He dared challenge me, probably thinking my decade in seclusion had mellowed me. After the crowd dispersed, I gave each remaining person a solid slap. Seeing them all lying on the ground covering their faces lifted my spirits a bit. Leaving the U-Grove is fine, but after raising you all these years, it's only fair this master-disciple bond concludes with repaid favors or revoked blessings, don't you think? With that, I turned and went back inside. Get in here, on your knees. As I settled back by Clara's bedside, the 5 apprentices shuffled in awkwardly. Not a single one knelt. They all stared at me defiantly in protest. Without another word, I cast an equalizing weight spell upon each of them. The crushing force left them no choice but to kneel and endure. How dare you show such favoritism to Clara? What a racket. So I hit them with a silencing spell. Suddenly, Clara on the ice bed furrowed her brows and cried master, as if trapped in some nightmare. I leaned down to feel her forehead, gently wiping away her sweat. Why do I treat her so well? Probably because she saved my life 20 years ago. 2 decades ago, a great demon emerged in the West, wreaking havoc upon the world. Back then, I was merely a disciple under the former sect master of the Mystic Gate. Setting aside his own son, he often said I was his most accomplished and favored apprentice. He claimed that had it not been for my senior brother, I might have succeeded him as the next leader of the Mystic Gate. He promised that if I could subdue the great demon in the West, mortals would forever remember the sage's benevolence. With my blood-stained sword on my back, I descended the mountain and headed westward. Back then, I still dreamed of becoming a renowned cultivator, sworn to save all living beings. Along the way, I helped every destitute soul I encountered whenever possible. By the time I reached Cedar Town, they all called me their savior. They say my kindness is beyond repayment for eternity, yet no one warned me that demon was a shadow wraith. By the time I realized, it was too late. The wraith had fused with my shadow. Killing it would cost me half my life, but I always carry this demon-repelling talisman. No evil spirit can get near me. Puzzled, I took off the talisman only to discover it was a counterfeit. My senior brother had swapped it with a fake. He feared my demon-slaying success would win the people's favor and threaten his position. That day, I meditated for hours but still couldn't comprehend human nature, yet my righteous desire to vanquish evil compelled me to devise a demon-slaying plan. I told the village chief I'd separate my shadow's true form. Making me and the shadow demon equally matched, we'd surely wound each other gravely in battle. Then I'd need the villagers to strike and finish off that shadow demon. The mayor agreed most enthusiastically, yet when I lay paralyzed on the ground, he hurled stones at me, for the shadow demon declared, "I shall remember each of you. Should you fail to kill me this day, I will hunt you down one by one to settle this score. Then your parents, your children, even your very flesh shall fill my belly." To mortals, a demon's threat carries more dread than a cultivator's promise. The villagers who once treated me well have all turned against me. "It's all your fault. If you hadn't meddled, we could have just offered a child each month. Now we're all doomed. Please don't be angry, my lord. That Taoist priest deceived us all. We'll help you kill her. Yes, kill her, kill her." The glaring sunlight beat down, yet brought only deepening chill. The shadow demon laughed uproariously at me, saying, "Such is the way of mortals. Give them an inch, they'll take a mile." The villagers dared not approach, only throwing stones from a distance. Some folks had pretty good aim. They pelted me until my head was bleeding, my spiritual energy spent. I lay motionless on the ground. In that moment, I swore I'd come back as a demon in my next life and devour every last one of these ungrateful wretches. But then, out of nowhere, a frail little girl I'd never seen before stepped in front of me. She shielded me from most of the attacks. The stones struck her bones with dull thuds. She asked, "Master, is there anything I can do for you? Blood, feed my sword with blood." She might not have understood, but she did it anyway. I drew my sword and slashed my own arm. The blood dripped onto the blade, resonating with an eerie hum. The power absorbed by the blood sword returned to me in a different form. The moment I stood up, I shielded the little girl behind me and struck the shadow demon with my sword. But I missed the perfect moment to strike. It was merely sealed within my shadow. Seeing me move again, the villagers who had been vicious moments ago suddenly turned friendly. My sword rose, then fell still, because the little girl stood shielding them. I asked her, "They beat you, don't you hate them?" "No, everyone's just scared of that shadow demon." Her eyes blinked like butterflies' wings, brimming with childlike innocence and kindness. What began as admiration grew tenfold when I learned she was an orphan girl who often suffered bullying. "Would you come with me? I'll be your master. I'll find you the finest magical artifacts and elixirs, and make you the happiest child in the world." The grimy little child hugged me in that moment. "Yea, now I have a family too." She had no name, so I gave her one, Clara. The spirits are rich and complex, but Clara proves the most challenging to distill. Later, I brought Clara back to the Mystic Gate. She became my first disciple. I reported all my senior brother's underhanded schemes to our master. Still, out of fatherly compassion, master only made my senior brother reflect on his mistakes at the Cliff of Penitence for 2 days. For, master said, when my senior brother becomes sect leader, I'll be his right-hand man. Back then, I couldn't understand why we received such different treatment despite both being master's disciples. Later, I wandered the mortal world with Clara, watching Clara take pity on child after child, begging me to bring them back to the Ugrove as disciples. I've long been skeptical of human nature. My kindness toward the other apprentices was solely to make them repay Clara, asking me to cherish them as I do Clara. That's beyond me. Clara knew my weakness well, so she redoubled her efforts to treat them kindly. Whatever I gave Clara, she'd share most of it with others. That's why I never bought into Lilith's nonsense, yet those who've benefited for over a decade swallow it whole. Makes me question their motives. 10 years ago, I sensed the shadow demon within me acting up and resolved to destroy it once and for all. I informed them in advance. They seemed so devoted to each other back then that I felt at ease in trusting the Euphorus to them. Looking back, they must have already been plotting against me at that time. At this thought, I opened my eyes and felt a grim satisfaction seeing the 5 kneeling figures struggling under the weight of the 1,000-gene curse. To truly understand Clara's suffering, I delved into her spiritual realm, tracing back to the very day Lilith first appeared. A year ago in my memories, Clara was suddenly summoned to the Grand Hall by the Sect Master. The Sect Master gestured toward Lilith in the hall and said, "This year's new inner disciple has been assigned to your Violet Grove." Clara hesitated for a moment before mustering the courage to decline on my behalf. "Elder, our master is still in seclusion and cannot accept disciples. Perhaps you could wait until he emerges to make your selection." The sect leader's face darkened at this rebuff, his cold gaze sweeping over Clara's fellow disciples. The other disciples quickly caught on and chimed in, "Though our master isn't here, we must heed our martial uncle's words. The Violet Grove won't mind having another junior sister." No one paid any attention to Clara's objections, and so Lilith was brought into the Violet Grove. In Clara's memories, she'd always been kind to Lilith, yet her kindness often ended up hurting Lilith. When she taught Lilith magic, the training would leave the girl covered in wounds, so her bulging storage pouch kept getting emptied by junior disciples under various pretexts. "Senior sister, since your sword aura injured Lilith, I'll take this Ganoderma to help her recover." "Senior sister, Lilith got poisoned from the pastries you gave her. I'll be taking this antidote pill to save her. Senior sister, Lilith only wants to cultivate with you. Why refuse? How about sharing some more elixirs to aid our practice? Taking these wasn't enough. This whole year they've been treating Clara like a walking blood bank. I've seen the truth behind all those misdeeds the inner disciples spoke of, clear as day in the spirit sea. They claimed Clara abandoned Lilith in the backwoods to fend for herself. The truth was Lilith had asked Clara for directions to the backwoods. Knowing the dangers, Clara pleaded with her repeatedly not to go. Lilith gave empty promises, yet sneaked off anyway, leaving a note about finding Clara's birthday gift. Clara didn't sleep for 2 days while searching for the missing Lilith. The accusation about cheating during the tournament is completely baseless. The truth is Lilith was outmatched by Clara but refused to admit defeat. She even had the nerve to confront Clara over a minor scratch on her arm. Senior sister, you drugged me. Why else would I be this weak? Clara tried to explain, but Lilith's single eye lost left her speechless, and cost her the legendary sword I'd found for her. After realizing everyone was on her side, Lilith became even more vicious toward Clara. This time in the Immortal's Fall cave, she merely gave herself a scratch. Yet falsely accused Clara of attempting to murder her. If Lilith was the mastermind behind framing Clara, those 5 troublemakers were her willing executioners who knew exactly what they were doing. Clara regained consciousness around noon the following day. I was resting with my eyes closed when suddenly, a faint master reached my ears. Opening my eyes, I met Clara's tear-filled gaze. Her eyes held nothing but unspoken anguish as she looked at me, afraid I'd distrust her like the others. She could only whisper master again. Clara, I'm here, with me as your master. No one will dare bully you again. 10 years ago, I used to say this to her often, and she would always just smile. A decade later, she wept instead. Clara clung to me desperately, her tears flowing like a breached dam, unrestrained and overwhelming. Wait for her to compose herself, watching my pale-faced disciples who'd been kneeling for hours. I conjured 2 lashes of magic. I casually lifted the weight curse and the silence hex from them. The strikes sent them sprawling with pained whimpers. Master, what are you doing? Clara just woke up and didn't understand my intentions yet. I gently patted her hand and explained. Clara, yesterday they claimed I was unworthy to be their master and wished to leave Violetwood. I consented, on the condition they leave behind all benefits gained through these years. And I shall grant them freedom, truth be told. This whole ordeal was unnecessary. I just wanted to let Clara vent her anger. Those who wronged her shall pay the price. Though barely able to speak, they still stood their ground defiantly. Sage, what have you ever given us? Take what you will, but after this I'll never acknowledge you as my master. How shameless. Then let me tell you exactly what favors you've received from our master. Their insults crossed Clara's bottom line. I could tell from Clara's expression she was reluctant to sever years of friendship and ready to let it go, but now they've forced a full reckoning. Junior brothers, let's not dwell on the elixirs and swords Master has given you over the years. Instead, I'll recount how he saved each of your lives. Second brother, when you foolishly went snake hunting in the back mountains as a child and got bitten by a venomous serpent. It was Master who braved the snowfields to find the snow lotus that saved you. Third brother, when your reckless ambition led you to ignore orders while demon slaying and you got captured for refinement, it was Master who stormed the demon's lair to rescue and heal you. Fourth brother, born with a fate that wouldn't see you past 15 winters, it was Master who intercepted the heavenly tribulation meant for you. Fifth junior, when you shattered the soul jade, it was Master who painstakingly pieced your spirit back together with his spiritual energy. Sixth junior, you coveted the sect leader's disciples' magical artifact and stole their destined opportunity. Had Master not pleaded with the sect leader on your behalf, do you really think you'd still be alive today? I'd completely forgotten about these incidents until Clara mentioned them. Turns out I haven't been such a terrible master after all. When they scolded me yesterday, I thought all I ever gave them was harsh words and blows. They seem to have forgotten all that too, falling into an awkward silence. 5. It's not like we asked her to do any of this. I stayed silent, just watching Clara. Clara was clearly furious, repeating fine 3 times through gritted teeth. If you won't acknowledge the life-saving debt, at least return the material aid Purplewood Grove provided. I never imagined our Purplewood Grove could be so petty. They merely shed their outer robes and surrendered the pitiful handful of elixirs and herbs from their storage pouches. They wouldn't even let go of the sword I found for them. They called it even. Seeing my silence, they exchanged glances and tried to bolt. With a cold laugh, I raised my hand and sealed the door shut, leaving them no escape. Fine, what a splendid accounting. Since our master-disciple bond is settled, I'll be collecting the debt of our first meeting too. As I spoke, I immobilized all 5 of them. Second brother, when I found you, your family was selling you into palace service. Had I not intervened, you'd be a eunuch by now. So I severed his spiritual roots and took his manhood. Third brother, when I found you, you'd been trampled by a passing noble's steed, your legs crushed beyond use. Without my intervention, you'd have been a cripple for life. So I severed his spiritual roots and chopped off his legs. Fourth brother, when we met, You were writhing in incurable agony. Had I not stepped in, you'd be rotting in your grave by now. What is it? So I simply ran him through with my blade. Old Fifth, when I found you, you were just a blind beggar. Without me, you'd still be groping in the dark with your begging bowl. So I severed his spiritual roots and put out his eyes for good measure. Old Sixth, when we met, you were destined to burn as funeral offerings. Had I not intervened, you'd have been ashes these past dozen years. Thus I kindled upon him flames that no water could quench. He writhed in agony on the ground, with no escape from the torment. Since he enjoys throwing tantrums, let him vent while he still can. His days are numbered. I can't stand how messy Clara keeps her place. With a single teleportation spell, the entire room's occupants were transported to the Mystic Gate Hall. Just in time to catch the sect master and elders framing me with false charges, the sixth disciple spotted salvation. Darting around the hall wreathed in flames, the terrified elders scattered like startled birds. The few surviving disciples who could still speak began crying for help. Uncle Master, save me, Sage has gone mad. She's trying to kill us. How could anyone be so vicious? Hearing their twisted accusations, Clara's temper flared. Uncle Master, don't listen to their slander against our master. They wanted to sever ties yet refused to make any sacrifices, so Master had to. I tugged at Clara before she could finish speaking. Seeing no one would help him, my sixth disciple charged straight at Clara with that ball of fire. The moment his intentions became clear, I ended him with a swift sword strike. The flames finally died out. I pointed at the three remaining useless wretches and swept my gaze across the hall's power holders. I asked, didn't you all want to take my disciples? Now that I've severed ties with them, they're yours for the taking. Though I've ripped out their spiritual roots, just spend a few more years training them and they'll recover. Sage, how can an elder of the mystic sect be so bloodthirsty? Without spiritual roots, what exactly am I supposed to inherit? So they only want my fully trained disciples, can't even lift a finger to help. Well, if you refuse it, then you've no right to live. With a swift blade. 3 more fell dead in the hall. Strange how they're more upset than I am, when it was my 5 disciples who died. My senior brother, the sect leader, was about to join forces with the elders to set a death trap for me. I severed his arm without hesitation, leaned close to whisper in his ear, hush, senior brother, it's reattachable, unless you'd prefer I reveal your little shadow demon's secret. Threats work like a charm. His greatest fear was tarnishing his heroic image. Enduring the agony of a severed hand, he barked out orders. Sage's wicked nature makes her utterly unworthy of being an elder of our mystic sect. Effective immediately, I strip her of this title and banish her from our mountains, never to return. To others, being cast out by a major cultivation sect might seem like a devastating blow, but I merely smiled, with a final martial salute. I bowed to my senior brother on the elevated platform. Thank you, senior brother. Only 5 people were lost during the 2 transfers. Clara held my hand, on the verge of tears again. Master, this is all my fault. I got you expelled from the mystic sect. Let me plead with the elder to punish me instead. Don't go. Truth is, I've wanted to leave this place for a long time. When I was haunted by shadow demons and no one heeded my pleas, that's when I lost all attachment to the mystic sect. The only reason I stayed was my master's dying wish. He shackled me with a decade of master-disciple bonds, turning me into his enforcer to purge demons. All these years, it was my blade that carved out the mystic sect's fearsome reputation. Now, my debt of gratitude is repaid. Clara stopped crying after hearing me out, silently gathering her belongings. She wanted to uproot every single flower and blade of grass from the forest. Not a single blessing shall remain for those ungrateful wretches. The cage that trapped me was reduced to ashes by Clara's raging fire. As I descended the mystic gate, twilight had already embraced the mortal world. Clara pointed at the wisp of smoke rising in the distance. Master, let's rest there. People told me about this new tavern at the foot of Xianmen. They say the food's amazing. My treat. Very well. Clara's treating me today. The tavern lived up to its reputation. Even I, who hadn't touched proper food in a decade, devoured 2 full bowls. Full and content, we leaned back in the booth chairs gazing at the night sky. Clara suddenly seemed wistful. I asked her what was wrong. She replied, it's just a shame our master devoted so much to the mystic sect. Just knowing Clara will always stand by my side in this lifetime softens my expression. I smiled and ruffled her hair. No worries. I've left them a little parting gift. What is it? Tell me, master, please. I pointed outside the private room, signaling for silence. Clara got the message and quietly turned to gaze at the moon. My senior actually sent someone to tail me. Guess he still doesn't trust me. Unbothered, I went about my business under the watchful gaze of this third eye. Since Clara adored worldly pleasures, I settled in an abandoned Taoist temple on the city outskirts. I believed him. With my renovation skills, the dilapidated building gradually became habitable. I christened each shabby room, then gave the temple itself a new name, Purple Grove. Because Clara said the yew grove is our home. It used to be a small bamboo grove of the Mystic Gate, now it's our sect's name, though there isn't a single bamboo here. When the yew grove was first established, only villagers nearby knew of it. They chuckled, Master Taoist, cultivating immortality is no easy feat. Young seekers naturally flock to major sects. Your humble establishment here may go unnoticed. I simply smiled in return. No matter, the path of cultivation follows destined encounters. Besides, it's not as if I'd lack for disciples. While I was meditating, Clara would occasionally sneak off to nearby towns for some leisure. Every time she spotted those poor orphans, she'd secretly bring them back to the yew grove to raise, then beg me to take them in. 6. Thanks to her, I'll never run short of disciples in this lifetime. Thanks to her, the Purple Maple Grove gained quite a reputation. Being short on funds to support them, I'd take any demon-slaying job that paid around the area. Clara picked up the trade too. Whenever some wealthy household reported hauntings, she'd show up to perform exorcisms. At least we managed to patch up those dilapidated huts in Purple Maple Grove. Just as everything was falling into place, the cultivation world was struck by devastating news. The inner disciples of the Mystic Sect were slaughtered overnight, with only outer sect members surviving the massacre. When Clara told me, I'd nearly forgotten about this special gift. It was the sole remnant of the shadow demon I'd slain. The shadow demon had dwelled within me for a decade, secretly intertwining with my inner demons. When I secluded myself to destroy it, my inner demons were purged along with it. During those 10 years of seclusion, the shadow demon's spirit fed on my essence daily, eventually becoming the physical manifestation of my obsession. And my greatest demon was the slaughter of the Xianmen sect. Slaughter this false sanctuary that displeases me. Though this inner demon is dangerous, it dares not act up as long as I remain in the Mystic Sect. Spirits lack physical form, they'll dissipate into nothingness after drifting for a few years, yet I never expected that after leaving seclusion, I wouldn't even last 2 full days in the Mystic Sect. Perhaps this calamity was fated for the Mystic Sect. How lamentable. The foremost sect vanished from the cultivation world just like that, on a tranquil rainy night. The gates of the Violetwood Grove were knocked upon. My usually domineering senior brother appeared before me in utter disarray. Sage, that demon is too powerful. My spells can't even scratch it. All the inner disciples of the Mystic Sect are dead. The other elders fled, and so did I. But the creature keeps hunting us down. My fellow disciples are all gone. You're my only hope now, Sage. Please save your senior brother. His groveling demeanor brought me no satisfaction. For his plea held no sincerity. If even the Mystic Sect's Grandmaster couldn't defeat that demon, what chance do I have? I beg you, Taoist priest, leave at once. Don't bring calamity upon our Violet Grove. With that, I slammed the door shut, left him to fend for himself outside, slept soundly that night without hearing a peep. Only to be woken at dawn by my rowdy apprentices shouting at the door, Master, Master, there's a dead man at the gate. It was senior brother. He died right at the entrance to the Violetwood Grove. A single sword stroke took his life. Even in death, his hand still reached toward the grove. Without much sorrow, I gave orders to my disciples, drag it away, bury it somewhere far. Your master's got demons to slay today. Still want meat for supper? Yes, in no time. They efficiently carried off the corpse. I just saw something fall from his hand. When I stepped outside, I realized it was a demon-repelling talisman. What cursed junk. Without hesitation, I kicked it aside and shouldered my blood-stained sword as I left. Clara called out while chasing after him, Master, have some steamed buns before you go. We'll be waiting for you at home. Story 2. In my previous life, just after I won a 20 million lottery, the apocalypse arrived. Barely surviving the extreme cold by relying on the supplies I had stockpiled, yet I couldn't escape the betrayal from my boyfriend and best friend. I died in the 2nd year of the apocalypse, reborn into this life, watching their pitiful state of hunger and cold as they turn on each other like dogs. I couldn't help but open another self-heating hot pot, pure bliss, creak, due to the sudden brake. Inertia threw my whole body forward before the seatbelt yanked me back, making my back slam heavily against the car seat. Are you insane? Can't you drive properly? Didn't you see a car coming? Listening to the taxi driver's curses, I looked out the window to see a muttering homeless man being dragged away, faintly hearing words like apocalypse, watching these familiar scenes unfold. Had I been reborn? The date on my phone read July 11th, 2035, 1, which meant there was only 1 month left until the apocalypse. The driver saw Lara's dazed expression and thought she was frightened. Hey, are you okay? Hearing the driver's voice, she finally snapped out of it. I'm fine. He also smiled at the driver. The driver wiped non-existent sweat from his forehead. Looking outside where the sun was already blazing at just 8 a.m., he couldn't help but complain. What kind of weather is this? Why is it so hot this year? It would be nice if it were cooler. Actually, it's not that bad. Not really hot. After saying this, She happily moved to a spot where she could bask in the sunlight. The driver watched her movements and sighed inwardly again about how wonderful youth is. I genuinely don't feel hot right now. After all, surviving for a whole year in temperatures of -50 to 60 degrees, now this sun feels incredibly warm. In my previous life, I also thought the weather this year was unusually hot at this time. So much so that I wished I could stuff my whole body into a refrigerator. No one expected that a month later, it would start snowing heavily, just when everyone thought the snow would stop soon. Who would have guessed it would only get heavier, and the temperature would keep dropping? It rained for a whole year, never thought I'd survive the extreme cold, only to be killed by that despicable couple, and now I'm on my way to claim a massive lottery prize. Yesterday, while passing a lottery station with a colleague, I was impulsively pulled in to buy a randomly selected ticket together. Who knew I'd directly win 20 million? In my past life, after claiming the prize, I was sweet-talked by a scumbag who said he'd invest it, only to end up throwing good money after bad, gone without a trace. Now that I've been given a second chance, I swear I'll make them pay the price they deserve. But the silver lining is that I hadn't yet told that scumbag about my lottery win. I originally planned to wait until after receiving the award to tell him, to give him a surprise, but now, the surprise is unnecessary. The surprise can still be arranged. Arriving at the lottery center, I walked in quietly. By the time all the procedures were completed, it was almost noon. Seeing the extra 16 million in my bank account, I inexplicably felt at ease. Time is running out. The most urgent task now is to find a personal apocalypse shelter. The apocalypse began with extreme cold, followed immediately by extreme heat, causing snow to melt rapidly. Water levels kept rising continuously. Just as I was preparing to move out from my previous residence, that scumbag tied me up, saying I had no more use and keeping me would just waste food before abandoning me. Only then did I realize my so-called perfect boyfriend and best friend had been secretly hooking up behind my back all along. My phone vibrated. When I took it out and saw the message, I felt physically sick, utterly disgusted. Baby, you mentioned having a surprise yesterday. Can you tell me now? Reading Jules' message, I couldn't help but scoff internally. A surprise, more like a shock. Want that instead. And seeing the $3,000 she just transferred to Serenity last night suddenly made my heart ache with regret. This is what I've painstakingly saved up. Being an orphan since childhood made me quite introverted, so as long as Serenity is kind to me, I basically can't refuse any request. You're out of your mind. Suddenly I feel like I'm the universe's ultimate simp. This is a disease that needs treatment. Resist the urge to block them. Now isn't the time to burn bridges. Then I directly contacted the real estate agent. The top priority is finding a suitable shelter for myself in the apocalypse. Fortunately, the two of them don't know where to meet privately, so they probably won't return soon. Otherwise, completely avoiding them would be somewhat challenging. I don't want them to notice anything yet, otherwise how can we give them a surprise? The apartment I lived in during my previous life was on a higher floor, which is why it wasn't buried under heavy snow. Many lower floors were directly covered by ice and snow, with people freezing to death before they could even attempt self-rescue, so the floor must be high, and the neighborhood must be safe. The apocalypse itself isn't the most terrifying thing. What's worse is human nature. I once witnessed several burly men breaking into a household, and soon after, the smell of meat wafted out. In that environment, where could one possibly find meat? The source was all too obvious. I don't know how long these apocalyptic disasters will last, but I'll strive to survive as long as possible. She still wants to see our country's magnificent landscapes, and I believe the country has never given up on us. The agent I was dealing with was relatively young, and didn't show any disdain when seeing my shabby appearance. Upon hearing my housing requirements, they only paused briefly before enthusiastically introducing properties to me. This is a unit in Emerald Court. On the top floor, the owner has settled abroad, so you can move in directly with just your luggage. If you wish to make renovations, you just need to restore it to its original condition when the contract expires. After listening to the salesperson, I was very satisfied with this house and signed the contract directly. After getting the keys, seeing there was still time, I rushed to the renovation company again. After extreme cold comes extreme heat, and what comes after that is unknown. After all, I didn't live that long in my previous life, but surviving known risks is still achievable. The first thing now is to renovate the house, adding insulation layers everywhere. Anyway, money is no object now. When the apocalypse comes, this money will just be worthless paper. All materials are of the highest quality. The boss claims they can withstand temperatures from -50 to 50 degrees, but who knows if that's true? It remains to be verified. The doors and windows are all explosion-proof and privacy grade, and importantly, each has 2 layers installed. Miss Alara, ours is vault-level security. 1 layer is enough. Watching the boss hesitate to speak, I smiled, putting on an air of being naive but wealthy. It's fine. It's fine, boss, just install 2 layers, I've got money, too. After saying that, I directly transferred the deposit to the boss. Hearing the sound of the money arriving, the boss immediately shut his mouth. What else can I say? Let's get to work, boss. You must get this done for me in half a month. I'm in a hurry. The boss initially wanted to refuse because the materials were hard to find, but the generous payment made him agree. When I first saw this house, another advantage was that it was on the top floor with a huge terrace attached. You can build a greenhouse-like structure with privacy materials, making it completely impossible to see inside from the outside, also preventing anyone from using drones for reconnaissance in a post-apocalyptic scenario. Then install some solar panels, planning to use them for growing vegetables in extreme cold weather. Vegetables become extremely scarce. Just imagine having hot pot on a cold day with some bok choy, it makes your mouth water. Then came various heaters, and we even bought several large freezers. While they're useless in extreme cold, they'll come in handy during extreme heat. Not sure how long we can stay at this base, but it's always better to be safe than sorry. Store them all in one room and connect the solar power circuit to that room. Opened Taobao and immediately ordered 10 sets of cold-proof suits. 10 sets of heat insulation suits, along with hand warmers, cooling patches, and stocked up on essential medicines, thinking about the extreme heat coming later, when the accumulated snow would directly turn into vast waters. I ordered 2 more speedboats just in case we really encounter any emergencies, it would be good for escaping. Then I also purchased over a dozen charging devices, along with tablets and memory cards, all fully loaded with novels and TV series. I also bought more than 10 bags of cat litter. During extreme cold, when pipes freeze and toilets can't flush, I find cat litter essential for personal hygiene. Then I proceeded to buy all sorts of daily necessities like toilet paper. Next came various self-heating meals. I ordered every favorite dish I saw, eventually losing track of how much I'd purchased. After finishing everything, my stomach growled. So I ordered takeout from that place I usually can't afford. After finishing the meal, take out paper and pen to plan what you need to prepare for tomorrow. Looking at the balance in the bank card, the originally anxious heart calmed down a bit. Give yourself some encouragement. It's okay, Alara, you can do this. There's still time. You'll definitely get through this safely. After waking up the next day, I casually had some breakfast and first went to the car rental place to rent an SUV. Although I could have others help with deliveries, people's intentions are hard to guard against. It's best not to let others know about stockpiling supplies. I also considered that a small truck could carry more, but small trucks frequently entering and exiting the neighborhood would be quite noticeable. At worst, I'll just make a few extra trips myself. Even after completing the paperwork, it was only 9:30, but the heat waves on the ground already seemed to be boiling. So I hurriedly drove to the city's largest wholesale market. I bought 20 bags each of rice and flour, along with various seasonings by the box, assorted canned fruits, dried fruits, snacks, beverages, and more. The shopkeeper followed behind, filling out the order form as we went. I told the shopkeeper I was running a small convenience store, though he seemed a bit surprised that a store owner would come to the market for supplies. He didn't say anything since there was money to be made. After confirming what I might have missed, I suddenly thought of vegetable seeds. After asking the shop owner where to buy vegetable seeds, I pulled some of the items and left first. The owner kindly gave me a small card as a gift. There was no other way. There were simply too many things. Even if I made several trips every day, it would still take days to move everything. Politely declined the boss's offer to help with deliveries. In the apocalypse, I've grown accustomed to not trusting others. After buying a large quantity of seeds, drove back to the current residential area, went straight to the underground garage, gradually loaded items onto a handcart, and pushed them into the elevator. The next few days followed the same pattern. It took a full 5 days to move everything from the market back into the house and get it properly stored. We tried our best to avoid people. Fortunately, there were few residents in the neighborhood to begin with, and we didn't encounter anyone while moving things. The online purchases started arriving one after another, forcing us to make multiple trips by car to collect them. During this period, those 2 people barely acknowledged me either, which suited me just fine as I couldn't be bothered to engage. After a few perfunctory exchanges, the conversations died out. Every day I'm planning how to survive longer in the apocalypse. It's truly a race against time. There are only 10 days left until the apocalypse. I've thought countless times about whether to report this to the authorities, but it sounds too horrifying. In the end, I decided to anonymously post about the impending apocalypse on major social platforms. It's the most I can do right now. It was trending hot at first, but after refreshing later, it got taken down completely. Probably the authorities stepped in to intervene. However, they later issued an announcement stating that observed planetary changes might trigger extreme weather. advising everyone to stock up on more food supplies. Seeing this made me relieved. It seems the country has also noticed the current weather issues and is taking preventive measures. In the apocalypse, human nature is even more terrifying, so it's essential to prepare some weapons for self-defense. 3. Stun batons, tasers, and broadswords. Broadswords aren't easy to obtain. It took connections and a lot of money to finally acquire a few. Once in hand, they felt perfectly balanced, definitely worth the money. Thought of something and bought several more pinhole cameras, installing them all around the outside of the house, then took a few more and returned to the previously rented apartment, installing them for 360 degrees coverage without blind spots, ensuring the ability to enjoy their loving life during the apocalypse later. There are still 5 days until the apocalypse begins, and she has most things well prepared. As for the water supply, we collect and store water every day, and the vegetables on the rooftop are sprouting quite impressively. There are 2 days left until the apocalypse, and the weather is getting hotter and hotter. Just as I was enjoying a delicious lunch at a high-end restaurant, my phone rang. I picked it up and saw that it was a call from that scumbag. Of course, this act had to continue. I waited until Jules was almost losing patience before leisurely answering the call. Alara. What's going on with you? Why did it take you so long to answer the phone? And here I was thinking of bringing you a gift when I got back from my business trip. I'll be back in a couple of days. Remember to buy some things to celebrate when I get back. You can invite your friends over too. The more, the merrier. Jules issued his orders and then hung up without another word. My friends, I only have one friend, Serenity. Want to celebrate? Then I'll satisfy you. Flaunting a large cardboard box stuffed with sponge, topped with snacks, fruits, and the like, deliberately chose to pass by a crowd of elderly folks during peak hours, generously sharing some with them. The grateful aunties even offered to help carry it, but of course I politely declined. After all, there's just a few things on top. Moving them would definitely expose the truth. With 1 day left before the apocalypse outbreak, I'm already comfortably nestled in my recliner, watching the surveillance. The extreme cold struck at midnight, and many people never woke up again that night. Watching the apartment door open, seeing Serenity and Jules appear together. How had I not suspected anything in my previous life? Seeing no trace of me in the apartment, their movements grew increasingly bold. Soon, the two were rolling on the sofa. Serenity, though clearly unable to wait any longer, still pretended to resist. Jules, this isn't right. What if Alara comes back and sees us, still putting on an act? She gave a half-hearted push. Darling, instead of worrying about her catching us, you should be worrying about yourself. Without another word, he immediately pounced. Unable to bear the cringeworthy scene, I turned off the surveillance feed on my phone and started preparing dinner. Let's have hot pot today. If we don't eat it now, it'll only get worse later since the smell is quite strong. After arranging all the ingredients on the table, I picked up my tablet to watch a drama while cooking the hot pot. Watching the bubbling red oil in the pot, the complex emotions about the impending apocalypse were somewhat eased. The phone beside me kept vibrating. No doubt it was messages from them. What's the rush? They'll have plenty to worry about later. This is just the beginning. After finishing everything, I treated myself to a nice, relaxing bath. After all, this kind of life ends today. And who knows if there will be another chance in the future. The money wasn't all spent yet, so I exchanged the remaining amount for gold bars, keeping only a little cash. In case the apocalypse ends one day, I need to be prepared to embrace a new beginning and a new life. Seeing the two people constantly messaging me, I just replied that she was temporarily sent on a business trip and wouldn't be back for a few days. Regardless of their reactions, I turned off my phone directly. Woke up in the middle of sleep feeling increasingly cold, shivering from the chill. The apocalypse has arrived. Quickly turned on the prepared heater, electric blanket, and space heater. Walked to the window, nothing but the faint glow of streetlights amidst boundless darkness. Snowflakes began drifting from the sky, starting as sparse specks before growing heavier. Cold, so cold, I dragged another thick quilt over myself, wrapping up tightly, and only then did warmth return, making me drowsy with comfort. The next day, I was woken by the alarm clock. As I've always maintained the habit of waking up on time, putting on thermal wear, I looked outside at the blanket of white, where even a few children were having a snowball fight downstairs. Laughing with pure joy, I furrowed my brows, sensing that the snowfall seemed even heavier than in my previous life. Regardless of whether any unforeseen events might occur, we'll just have to take things one step at a time. The experienced elders, observing the unusual weather and recalling the official announcements earlier, weren't as optimistic as the younger generation. They instructed their families to stock up on supplies promptly, which is why all major supermarkets are now overcrowded. The snow kept falling as I took out my phone and turned it on, seeing 99 plus unread WeChat messages, and couldn't help but smile. I immediately made a video call, which was answered the moment I dialed. Saw both of them wrapped in separate blankets, shivering. Jules questioned in a very unpleasant tone, Alara, where have you been? You're not answering your phone. We're freezing to death here. Hurry back and bring some supplies when you come. Looking at them like this, I fought back my disgust and put on a pitiful expression. Why are you being so harsh? You don't even care about how I'm doing right now. Yesterday I rushed back overnight, and as soon as I arrived it started snowing heavily. I had to stay at a hotel, and my phone died. If I'd known you'd be like this, I wouldn't have come back at all. Serenity thought this was unacceptable, with such terrible weather outside. If she didn't come back to deliver supplies, what would they do? Secretly tugged at Jules' sleeve and gave him a meaningful look. Alara, that's not what Jules meant. He's just overly concerned about you, so his tone came across a bit harsh. Seeing my slightly softened expression, Serenity felt a surge of smug satisfaction. What a fool, easily pacified with just a few comforting words. Alara, come back quickly, the weather is too severe now. If you return, we can look out for each other. I put on a touched expression. Okay, I'll come back right away, wait for me, I'll be quick. After saying that, I immediately hung up the phone, afraid I might vomit if I delayed even a second. As for the supplies, just wait slowly, last life they sucked me dry. But without my foolishness this time, let's see how long they can last. It's too cold to cook, so I took out a self-heating hot pot and quietly watched the surveillance, watching them devour instant noodles and gnaw on bread with big, voracious bites. Perhaps finding it too cold and hard, they discarded half of it after taking a few bites. Eat up. Judging by their wasteful behavior, they'll likely run out of food by tomorrow, but credit where it's due, that insulation layer was totally worth it. The boss indeed didn't lie to her. Although the room was still cold, it felt quite warm compared to the outside. Just sticking a thermometer outside showed it was nearly -40 degrees, while indoors it was only -5 degrees. But I don't plan to keep the heating system running constantly. I'll rely on my body to gradually adapt to the extreme cold. While everyone was out panic buying, I also pretended to go out, not wanting to stand out too much and arouse suspicion, for, upon returning home, I felt like I came back to life. The wind outside stung my exposed skin, and the snow had already reached my calves. It would likely be waist-high by tomorrow. There were many snowplows on the road, but they seemed futile. My phone kept ringing, but I couldn't be bothered to answer. Leisurely preparing tonight's dinner instead. Watching the two of them go crazy on the surveillance feed made my movements noticeably lighter. Let's have steak today. The little sun's rays make this whole area feel warm and cozy. Casually picked up the phone, took a photo, created a group chat with both of them, and sent the picture, then turned off the phone immediately, feeling like I've teased them enough. Finally answered the call. Alara, what do you mean? Where are you? Come back quickly. Hearing Jules' furious voice, I burst out laughing. Me, of course I'm in a place you'll never find. You and her can just wait there to die. Serenity beside me quickly turned to Jules. What did Alara say? Looking at this woman before him, Jules was filled with regret. What else can I say? She knows about us. She hung up directly. That bitch. Serenity's face turned pale upon hearing this. Seeing that it was already dark outside with the wind howling against the windows, she steeled her heart. We must go out and stock up on supplies, or we'll starve to death before we even freeze. Jules reluctantly followed her out the door, but since everyone had gone shopping during the day, it took hours of squeezing through crowds just to buy some instant noodles and snacks. The heavy snow never stopped, only growing heavier. Every day I train my physical endurance, so if I really encounter those people, I'll at least have some ability to protect myself. At the very least, I'll drag a few down with me. Thinking of this, I trained even more fiercely. During that time, those two kept contacting me too, from initial apologies to curses, ending with them turning on each other. I never replied. I just regularly posted my daily meals in the group chat, nothing more. On the 10th day of the apocalypse outbreak, as people couldn't go out, many had already run out of food. There were constant messages in the residents group asking who had food to spare, willing to pay high prices. At this point, food means survival. How could anyone possibly respond to such requests? I was still in that same group when suddenly I saw an older woman post a message. That young girl in Building 2, Unit 2502 probably has some. I saw her moving in big boxes before, and she used to share a lot too. She was quite generous. The fish took the bait. Then they saw a group of people directly approaching to knock on the door, frightened by the crowd. They didn't dare open it and kept explaining they had no food left. But the crowd wouldn't back down. Someone started it, and then the group broke in, taking all their food by force. Jules even took a few punches. Serenity's continuous crying and shouting behind proved futile. After everyone left, the two collapsed on the ground with expressions of utter despair. 3 months after the apocalypse outbreak, snow had already piled up to the 10th floor. Those in lower floors were either buried alive or desperately squeezing into higher floors. Fortunately, The current location has low occupancy, however, with banging sounds heard from 2 or 3 floors below in recent days. People have already moved in. This is absolutely no time for complacency. Ever since Jules traded serenity to a scar-faced man for a small piece of bread, he never paid attention to them again. It's been 6 months into the apocalypse, and I realize I've become somewhat isolated from the world. During this time, I particularly love staying in my greenhouse. Watching the vibrant green vegetables, only then do I feel truly alive. The current situation has improved slightly, with the government stepping in to maintain control and distributing some supplies to survivors. Though scarce, it still offers a glimmer of hope to those at their wits' end. However, I know full well that the current harmony is superficial. Once the extreme cold passes and we plunge directly into extreme heat, the situation will become even worse than before. I now listen to the radio every day, as electricity was completely cut off just 1 month after the apocalypse began. 5. Apart from the very few with solar power capabilities, only government facilities can barely maintain normal electricity supply. Attention all surviving compatriots, due to the severe situation, after careful consideration, our country has decided to build shelters at the following locations. Hearing this news, I was somewhat stunned. Why hadn't I heard about any shelters in my previous life? I decided to observe further, as taking one wrong step could lead to an abyss. I've been thinking a lot these past few days, and finally made a phone call. It was answered almost immediately after dialing. Hello, who is this? Hearing that deep voice in my ear, I felt an inexplicable urge to cry, Phoenix, I'm at Emerald Court, can you come pick me up? Not hearing a response, I picked up the phone and saw the call was still connected. Suddenly, a voice came through the phone. Alara, is that you? Stay right there, protect yourself, I'm coming right away. Suddenly, there was the sharp sound of a chair being pushed back abruptly. I quickly hung up the phone and composed myself. To be honest, I didn't know how to face Phoenix right now. I can't really be considered a complete orphan. I just got lost as a child, and my biological parents adopted Phoenix. The first time I saw Phoenix, I was crying while eating instant noodles by the roadside. I still remember how he looked disgusted yet pulled out tissues to clumsily wipe my face. Later, when I was taken home, Phoenix became my nominal older brother, while my biological parents were no longer around. Later, I fell in love with Phoenix. Then later, he looked at me with disgust and called me disgusting. Finally, I ran away, completely escaping from Phoenix, changed all contact information. No one could find me. In my previous life, at the moment of my death, it seemed like I saw Phoenix holding me with a terrified expression. In this life, I actually heard news about him on the radio. Perhaps my previous life was real, but that doesn't matter now. I just want to survive. Since Phoenix seems to be doing well now, there's no reason for his sister to be living in fear alone outside. Although their own supplies could last for several more years without issue, the unknown dangers are far more terrifying, with extreme heat being the greatest challenge they'll face ahead. Originally thought Phoenix wouldn't come for a long time, since he never seemed to particularly favor them before, perhaps because they lacked a sense of security, being too clingy and annoying to others. Never expected that by evening, several modified snow vehicles would arrive downstairs. I was preparing dinner when the door was knocked, and upon hearing it, I instinctively checked the surveillance camera. Phoenix seemed to know I was watching him, as he looked directly at the camera. His intense gaze frightened me so much that I immediately opened the door. The moment the door opened, I was pulled into a tight embrace. His hold was so strong it felt like he wanted to merge me into his body. I noticed 2 other people beside me and gave Phoenix a slight push. It's so cold outside. Come in and talk, I just happened to cook something. As soon as we entered my safe house, a slightly chubby young man in camouflage exclaimed, Girl, your place is really nice, much warmer than outside. Then seeing my precious greens, they exclaimed in surprise again. Phoenix looked a bit doubtful too, but ultimately didn't voice the question. Originally I only prepared food for myself, but now 3 grown men suddenly showed up. This amount of food is clearly insufficient. It's been a while since I had hot pot anyway. With them here, I don't have to worry, so might as well enjoy it to the fullest this time. Quickly arranged all the ingredients. During this, Phoenix and I tacitly avoided mentioning past events, as if they had never happened. Phoenix, your sister is truly capable, graceful in the living room and skilled in the kitchen. Heh, do I look like your future brother-in-law? After saying this while rubbing his hands, he was immediately kicked by Phoenix. After eating, I was cleaning up in the kitchen when Phoenix suddenly slipped in, took the bowl from my hands, and started tidying up on his own. Phoenix, do you believe in past lives and reincarnation? Phoenix paused and said, Alara, don't say these words to anyone else. I realized I was wrong. I used to be too fixated on things. Isn't relying on a highly capable brother a good choice? After saying this, she left Phoenix in the kitchen. But I regret it now, Phoenix murmured while watching Alara's retreating figure. But no one could make out what was said. Soon I packed up my belongings and returned to the safe house with Phoenix. However, the stockpiled supplies couldn't be moved all at once. Several vehicles came this time to pick up survivors too, so we could only notify people to collect the rest later. But I didn't plan to keep everything for myself. I gave half of it to the state. When they were suffering, the country did not abandon them. So this is also considered a gesture of my own goodwill. Later, I told Phoenix about the extreme heat following the extreme cold. I don't know how he communicated it to the higher-ups, but all bases are actively preparing for the apocalypse. Inspired by China's actions, other countries also began to take initiative. People around the world united and worked together to face this global catastrophe. 6. Although there are always some attention seekers jumping around and stirring up trouble, it's nothing serious. Disasters keep evolving, but humanity keeps progressing. I participate in post-disaster reconstruction work every day, watching people fall one by one, yet seeing others stand up again. Witnessing these scenes, my heart burns with passion. This, I know, is the power of the people. Suddenly seeing an iron rod about to fall precariously, with a child just over 10 years old standing beneath it. He had spoken to me this morning, saying that even if his parents were gone, this place was still his home. Without thinking much, I pushed him aside with all my strength. The iron rod struck heavily on my chest. It really hurts. I don't like the metallic taste in my mouth, but I can't control it. At this moment, my mind is incredibly clear. It feels like my previous life also ended today. It seems I still can't escape this fate. The scene before me gradually blurred. I seemed to see Phoenix running over, his mouth shouting something. I tried hard to listen, but couldn't make it out. I also saw that child clutching my hand, crying incessantly. I tried to curl my lips, wanting to smile, but it seemed I couldn't even do that anymore. My world plunged into complete darkness. I became a vegetable, the best outcome in this misfortune. Every day Phoenix would come and chatter by my ear, unbearably annoying. Many years later, humanity also welcomed its own dawn. As everything gradually improved, the rising sun shone warmly upon me, and my slightly twitching fingers also represented my dawn. Story 2. My scumbag father passed away, leaving my half-brother $1,000,000 in inheritance and a mansion worth tens of millions. I, however, only received 50,000 yuan and a dilapidated old house in the urban village. Holding the property deed, my younger brother smiled obscenely. It's already good enough that the old man was willing to leave you something. That old house is dirty and shabby, which suits you perfectly. It'll be more convenient for you to receive customers, won't it? He has liked to spread vulgar rumors about me since he was a child, and later he even had his friends take turns to abuse me. I originally wanted to kill him with my own hands, but 3 days later, an extreme heat wave hit. The city lost water and electricity, and he was trapped on the 33rd floor of the high-rise building, unable to move an inch. I, on the other hand, had a sufficient stock of food in the dilapidated old house and was enjoying delicious food and drinks. A month later, my younger brother, who had become as thin as a skeleton, was carried out by the medical staff and died in front of me in despair. Reincarnated, he excitedly wanted to exchange houses with me. In this life, it should be me who lives, I sneered. Stupid people are still stupid no matter how many times they are reborn. Do you think that just by changing houses, you will definitely be able to survive? 1. My scumbag father passed away, leaving more than 1,000,000 yuan in savings, 2 houses, and SUV. The distribution of the inheritance was as biased as when he was still alive. My half-brother Charles inherited a newly renovated luxury penthouse worth tens of millions, 1,000,000 yuan in savings, and that car. I, however, was only allocated 50,000 yuan and a dilapidated old house in the urban village that had been decorated decades ago. When the will was being read, even the lawyer cast a sympathetic look at me. Meeting the lawyer's gaze, I suddenly realized that I had been reborn. I was back 3 days before the extreme heat arrived. Just as the lawyer was about to hand the property deeds to Charles and me, Charles suddenly changed his mind. He rushed over and snatched the property deed from my hand, and then pushed me hard. I don't want the penthouse, I want that dilapidated old house. Bitch, I want to exchange it with you. The lawyer was confused by him and stepped forward at a loss to help me up. I slowly stood up, holding my bruised hand, and smiled at the lawyer, but there was no trace of a smile in my eyes. I almost immediately realized that Charles must have been reborn too, because with his selfish character, he would never have considered exchanging with me otherwise. Sure enough, he hugged the property deed tightly and mumbled to himself, in this life, it should be me who lives. Although I was reborn, it was impossible for me to go back to that old house again, but I wouldn't let him get what he wanted so easily either. Without hesitation, I slapped Charles and snatched the property deed back. Charles covered his face in disbelief. Bitch, how dare you hit me? I sneered. So what if I hit you? You don't even know how to respect your elder sister. Why should I exchange with you? Charles first clenched his fists as if he wanted to fight back, then frowned and looked at me suspiciously. Weren't you the most cowardly before? Why are you suddenly so irritable? Do you know something too? He suspected that I had also been reborn, and of course I couldn't let him find out. I remained calm. You've bullied me so many times before. Do I need a reason to hit you? Seeing that my calmness didn't seem fake. A calculating look flashed in Charles's eyes, and he held back his anger and pleaded with me humbly. Yes, I know I was wrong. Consider the new house as my way of making amends to you. You've made a great deal. Hurry up and exchange with me. Looking at his submissive appearance, I almost laughed out loud. Charles, you finally got what you deserve. I didn't agree to him. Instead, I kicked him twice more forcefully. Charles endured it again and again, but finally lost his temper. His fist came at me with a whistling sound. You fucking bitch. Don't be ungrateful, will you? I'll kill you. I snorted coldly, easily caught his fist, clenched it, and twisted it hard, bending his arm into an extremely painful angle. Charles let out a scream instantly, and beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. He cried out in pain. Sister, 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 I was wrong. I won't do it again. Please let me go. I had no expression on my face. He couldn't stand it just because I broke his hand. Then what about the despair that pierced my bones when his friends took turns to abuse me in the past life, too? In the past life, Charles didn't exchange houses with me. The day he got the property deed, he couldn't wait to invite his cronies to have a party in the new house. Halfway through, he called me over, saying that after all these years, he realized he was wrong and wanted to apologize to me for the mistakes he made when he was young. I must have been out of my mind to actually go. When I got there, I realized that he just wanted me to go and pour drinks for them. In just one afternoon, he turned the new house into a mess, with wine bottles and vomit all over the floor. As soon as his cronies saw me, they started to heckle. Is this your cheap elder sister? Goodness, with this figure and appearance, no wonder she can earn money by spreading her legs. Brother Tian, you're really generous. You're willing to call her here for us to have fun with, leaning against the door. Charles said proudly, that's right, I told you that if you hang out with me, I'll make sure you have a good life. Furious, I slapped him hard and turned to leave. However, he chased after me in a rage and dragged me back to the new house. I don't want to recall what happened next, anyway, except that he thought it was too dirty and didn't participate. None of his friends spared me. They tortured me for a full 5 hours, and he, on the other hand, held a glass of red wine leisurely, turning a deaf ear to my cries for help, and even recorded the video with great interest. Are you guys capable? With just this little ability, I'd be ashamed to post it online. In the end, he threw me into the dilapidated old house like a worn-out doll. I was covered in injuries and didn't even have the strength to call the police. When I finally gathered some strength and tenaciously went to the hospital to have my injuries examined and reported the case to the police, trying to make him pay the price, the extreme heat wave came. In the extremely hot weather of over 50 degrees Celsius, no one could spare the time to fight for my dignity. In the past life, Charles was only starved to death due to a shortage of supplies, while I suffered 100 times more pain than him. He has just been reborn, and his memory hasn't been erased. I don't even know where he got the nerve to beg me to spare him and still want to exchange houses with me and let me die. With new and old grudges combined, I gave Charles a good beating. My martial arts skills are not just for show, they are real and deadly moves honed in battles with evil neighbors. After the extreme heatwave arrived, Charles was beaten black and blue by me. The lawyer next to us was afraid that I might kill him and quickly stopped me. I rubbed the tip of my shoe on Charles's clothes in disgust and put forward a condition. I can exchange the house with you, but I also want the car and the money. Charles's chest heaved violently, and his knuckles cracked. He almost gritted his teeth and squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth. Okay. Even the lawyer was shocked by his forbearance and took a few more glances at him. I curled my lips contemptuously. I knew he would agree. Based on my understanding of him, he must be thinking that as long as I die in the extreme heat, he can get everything back. Enduring it now is nothing. But he doesn't know that what awaits him in the dilapidated old house is not paradise, but hell. 3. After the lawyer helped us complete the transfer procedures and we exchanged the property deeds, Charles gave me a cold look and then hurried off to stock up on supplies. There were less than 3 days left before the extreme heatwave arrived. He had died once and was extremely scared. I didn't rush to stock up on supplies either. Instead, I bought a large batch of sunshade building materials from the building materials market. The new house was on the 33rd floor, a penthouse of more than 300 square meters, and the whole house had luxurious floor-to-ceiling windows. Under normal circumstances, the view would be excellent, but under the extreme heat, these glasses would turn the house into a deadly oven. I didn't know why Charles wasn't roasted to death in the past life, but if I wanted to survive in the penthouse, I had to solve this problem first. Ignoring the surprised looks of the decorators, I spent a lot of money to have them wrap the floor-to-ceiling windows with heat insulation materials layer by layer. At the same time, I also installed an extra set of heat insulation curtains that were 5 layers thick. After solving the problem of the glass, I bought 2 home generators, 2 large refrigerators, and 3 large air conditioners overnight. The extreme heat would only last for a month, and I didn't need to stock up on supplies on a large scale. I just drove the SUV to a large supermarket and bought all the necessary food, daily necessities, and medicine. I had a hard life in the past life, and in this life, I planned to treat myself well. So I bought expensive foods that I usually couldn't afford but really craved: imported milk, fruits, Australian lobsters, Norwegian salmon, etc. I even bought a box of 12 Miyazang King durians, which cost 600 yuan each, to stock up on. As for the water resources, which were the most scarce under the extreme heat, I directly ordered a full 50 boxes of mineral water from the water delivery company to be delivered to my door for emergency use. I wasn't worried that someone would come to rob me of my supplies. Unlike the dilapidated old house in the past life, the new house was in a new development with a low occupancy rate, and there were almost no neighbors. Moreover, as soon as the extreme heat arrived, the water and electricity would soon be cut off. Without the elevator, no one would be willing to climb 33 floors to rob me of my supplies. I was safe for the day before the extreme heat arrived. When I was organizing the freezer at home, I suddenly felt a severe headache, and a strange voice sounded in my head. "Hello, host, I am your monitoring system. In view of your excellent performance in the extreme heat environment in your past life, this system has specially opened a special monitoring perspective for you according to your current most urgent wish. P.S. This system is specially designed for the period of extreme heat and provides continuous service. Please note that once the extreme heat subsides, the system will automatically exit. It is recommended that the host make full use of it during this period." A large screen appeared in the void, and it actually recorded Charles's every move in real time. I was a bit speechless. Since I had awakened the system, couldn't it give me something more useful? What's the point of giving me this lousy monitor? Who wants to keep looking at Charles's unlucky face? I silently complained in my heart. The system detected my thoughts and said after a moment of silence, "Don't you want to see with your own eyes how he brings about his own destruction in the dilapidated old house?" Well, I really do. Charles was in the dilapidated old house at this time, bragging to his friends on the phone. "Let me tell you, as soon as the sun comes out tomorrow, the temperature will soar from 30 degrees to 50 degrees. If you don't want to be roasted to death, find a place to hide quickly." His friends, of course, didn't believe it and mocked him. "Brother Tian, have you read too many doomsday novels? You actually believe that the temperature can soar overnight? Do you really think the meteorological station is useless?" Charles leisurely shook his leg. "Believe it or not, you'll know tomorrow. Don't blame me for not reminding you then." He hung up the phone with a snap, still sounding proud. I knew that Charles didn't remind his friends out of kindness. He just wanted to show off his foresight. But he didn't know that it was this reckless show-off that accelerated his death. He was reborn once, but he was still so stupid. He thought that since I could survive smoothly in the dilapidated old house in the past life, he could definitely do it too. But he could never imagine what kind of living hell the safe house he thought of would become under the ravages of the extreme heat. In the past life, he was too weak. Before he died, he only saw that I was still alive. But he didn't notice that I was covered in injuries and was actually already on the verge of death. Of course, I wouldn't tell him the truth. I was even eagerly looking forward to seeing his desperate expression when he escaped from the dilapidated old house, if he could really escape alive. 5. The extreme heatwave arrived as scheduled. The notice issued by the expert said that there was a large-scale solar flare eruption, and the extreme heat would last for 3 days. The public was advised to stay calm and avoid going out during the period of extreme heat. The notice was exactly the same as in the past life, but I knew that the experts were wrong. The extreme heat would last for a whole month, getting hotter day by day. In the past life, due to the nationwide suspension of working classes, some netizens jokingly said, "Thank you for the extreme heat," which gave the vast number of working people a holiday, but not everyone was so carefree. There were panic buying sprees everywhere, and prices soared sharply. Air conditioners, fans, freezers, etc. for cooling were sold out directly, and they were hard to buy even with a lot of money. In the past life, I didn't have the money, couldn't get an air conditioner, and was reluctant to buy one. I could only spend the initial period of extreme heat by soaking in the inflatable swimming pool I found in the old house and blowing on the old electric fan, but this life was different. As soon as the temperature reached 50 degrees Celsius, Charles couldn't wait to call me to show off. "Bitch, how dare you hit me? Now you're trapped on the 33rd floor and can't come down, right? I'm telling you, the extreme heat will last for a whole year. You're doomed." I had just woken up from my 2-meter-wide bed and was preparing to make myself a sumptuous breakfast. After hearing his words, I calmly glanced at the thermometer. With the help of the 2 air conditioners, The indoor temperature was very comfortable, only 25 degrees Celsius. I yawned. I don't understand what you're talking about. What extreme heat? I motioned for the system to show me the monitor and clearly saw Charles's hand holding the phone pause, and he gritted his teeth. Don't you realize that the temperature outside has soared to 50 degrees now? Where are you now? You can't not be in the new house, right? He was very anxious. I found it interesting and deliberately provoked him. I'm here. But there's plenty of air conditioning in the new house, and it's not hot at all. I even feel cold. Charles stared at me in surprise. Impossible. It's obvious that the water and electricity will be cut off as soon as the extreme heat arrives there. Don't be stubborn. You must be dying of heat already, right? Unlike me, I'm the one enjoying myself in the old house with the air conditioner on. Do you want me to let you hear the sound of the air conditioner to cool you down, in the past life? Charles and his friends had a wild time in the new house for 3 days and 3 nights. When the extreme heat arrived, he was sound asleep in bed. He was awakened by the heat and then realized that the water and electricity in the new house had been cut off. Due to the low occupancy rate of the new house, the developer cut corners. And the infrastructure was simply not perfect. It was okay when there was no problem usually, but as soon as something happened, the machine started to break down completely. The soaring extreme heat was the last straw that broke the camel's back. Charles learned from his mobile phone what the expert said and naively thought that the extreme heat would really only last for 3 days, thinking that there were still some alcoholic drinks and snacks left from the party at home. And he was unwilling to climb the 33 floors. He stayed in the new house all the time. When he was almost dying from the heat, he kept calling and abusing the property management company, urging them to deal with the problem quickly. But with the temperature reaching 50 degrees Celsius, working classes were suspended all over the country. Who would dare to go out and serve him? Charles missed the initial evacuation period. As time went by, the situation became more and more critical. And he couldn't escape even if he wanted to, according to the medical staff who carried him out at that time. He later survived by eating his own excrement. He thought that I would be just like him, trapped in the new house and helpless when the extreme heat came, so he couldn't wait to call and mock me. However, he didn't expect that I was not affected at all. When he didn't get a reply from me for a long time, he became even more anxious and roared, "Bitch, I'm talking to you. Are you fucking deaf?" I found his naivety ridiculous. No matter how many years passed, he was still as sensitive and inferior as when he was first brought into my home by my scumbag father. He would fly into a rage once his demands were not met. I slowly heated a cup of milk for myself with a small electric cooker and sipped it slowly. Charles, don't you think you're the only one who was reborn? Let me tell you. Just because I could survive in that dilapidated old house doesn't mean you can too, and just because you couldn't survive in the new house doesn't mean I can't either. I had already made full preparations in the new house, so it didn't matter if I told him about the rebirth now, because it was impossible for him to survive in the dilapidated old house. On the monitor, Charles's face instantly turned livid. His eyes widened like copper bells, and his breathing became rapid. He said shrilly, "This is impossible. I'm the chosen one. What right do you have to be reborn, you stinky bitch, slut?" I impatiently picked my ears. If cursing me can restore your poor self-esteem, then go ahead. But if I were you, I'd first think about how to survive in the old house. You're not really that naive to think that the old house is definitely safe, are you? Charles's roar stopped abruptly, and a trace of fear flashed in his eyes. "Stella, what do you mean?" I sneered and hung up the phone directly. Charles had calculated well and stocked up a lot of supplies in the old house, but he didn't know what kind of demons lived in that dilapidated old house in the urban village. The supplies he hoarded were like a huge bait, attracting those people to skin him alive, pick his bones clean, and leave nothing behind. 6. In the past life, when I just moved back to the old house, there was no food at home at all. I endured the hunger until after 8 o'clock in the evening when the sun set and the temperature dropped a bit before going downstairs to buy some food at a high price. Although the temperature had dropped at that time, it was still around 45 degrees Celsius. I almost returned to the old house sweating profusely. However, there were several big men blocking the door of the house. They blatantly robbed me and asked me to hand over all the food. Of course I refused. There are still things for sale downstairs. The extreme heat will only last for 3 days. You don't have to rob me, do you? The leading big man spat. Cut the crap. We've all been hungry for a day. It's so hot outside and things are expensive. Only a fool would go out. If you're sensible, hand it over quickly. He grinning savagely. Don't think we don't know. That sissy who sent you back yesterday said that you're just a prostitute. If you serve us brothers well now, when the extreme heat is over, we promise to patronize your business. Under the pressure of their large numbers, I didn't dare to argue anymore and humiliatingly gave up the things. The sound insulation in the urban village was poor. The big man's shouts spread through several floors, but no one helped me. Everyone closed their doors and windows tightly. After they left, there were still people knocking on the door maliciously, also wanting to borrow food from me. But it was only the first day of the extreme heat. The water and electricity in the urban village hadn't been cut off yet. Those people clearly had the ability to solve the problem themselves, but they all came to bully me. In this life, perhaps because Charles was a man and he didn't go out to buy things, no one came to look for him for the time being. Charles was on tenterhooks at home for 2 days. After finding that nothing happened, he heaved a sigh of relief. Damn it. I knew that bitch was deliberately scaring me. She's just a woman who could survive here in the past life. I'm definitely stronger than her. When the extreme heat is over, I'll show that little slut. Damn it. I was just confused for a moment and forgot that as long as I make good preparations, I can survive anywhere after being reborn. I've let that stinky bitch off too easily. He cursed and called his cronies, bragging to them about how comfortable his life was. The big refrigerator, the big air conditioner, and the table full of delicious food made his friends extremely envious. They all asked him where he was and begged for help. After being scared by me, Charles became a bit more sensible. No matter how they tried to trick him, he didn't reveal his address. I sneered a few times while looking at the monitor, and directly asked the system to take a screenshot of the piled-up supplies in his house, download it to my mobile phone, and post it online together with the address of the old house with the caption, "I've built a safe house for the end of the world. Should I be proud? Welcome everyone to come and spend the summer heat with me." 7. This post was quickly topped the hot search list, with hundreds of thousands of likes and shares. Damn it, what a beast. I'm so hot at home that I can't even eat. But the poster can still enjoy delicious food and drinks while blowing 5 big air conditioners. Is this the gap between people? I'm so tired. No. Is the poster a moron? The extreme heat will only last for 3 days. Is it necessary to buy 5 air conditioners and stock up so many supplies? So pretentious. Reply to the above. You can't be sure. Haven't you noticed that the temperature has been getting more and more abnormal in recent years? Maybe this extreme heat is a precursor to the end of the world. I support the poster for being prepared. P.S. Aren't you afraid that someone with ulterior motives will covet your address if you expose it? Come on, talking about the end of the world at every turn. You've clearly read too many marketing accounts. I think the poster is just a person who sells air conditioners and runs a supermarket. He wants to trick people into coming to buy his supplies. There were all kinds of opinions on the internet. Some people even said that they would form a group to watch this show off after the extreme heat was over. Of course, Charles also came across this post. At first, he was greatly surprised and thought that I had installed a monitor in his house, but he searched every corner of the dilapidated old house and couldn't find it, so he called and cursed, "Bitch, what means did you use? You just can't stand to see me doing well and want to kill me, don't you?" I leaned on the sofa and sucked on the durian. "Yes," Charles said angrily, "if you're not benevolent, don't blame me for being disloyal." He also posted my address on various online forums, boasting that there were jewels and food hidden in my place, and most importantly, the owner of the house was a slut who would die of loneliness if she didn't see a man for a day. He tried to call on men to come to my house and kill me, but not everyone was as full of vulgar thoughts as him. As soon as his post was posted online, it was spontaneously reported and deleted by enthusiastic netizens. "Are you crazy? You're almost dying of heat, and who's still thinking about that kind of thing? I checked that address. Any house there costs 2 or 3 tens of millions. People with such financial strength would be short of men. You should at least be more realistic in your dreams." I feel sorry for the lady owner of the house. She must have been pestered by some dark and twisted pervert again. Some despicable men who are useless themselves like to spread vulgar rumors and slander girls. I'll report every one of them I see. He failed to frame me, but he himself got into trouble. In just one morning, it was enough for all the people who should have seen the post to see it. Bang bang bang, open the door. The community is checking the water meter. The iron door of the dilapidated old house was knocked loudly, and a man's malicious voice sounded outside the door. Charles's cronies also had him in the group and asked, "WC, Brother Tian, is this person in the photo you actually prefer to show off online rather than tell us where you are? That's so unkind." Charles's face instantly turned pale. He panicked. "8, open the door. I know someone is at home. You show off. Didn't you like showing off and inviting us to your house to escape the heat? Why don't you dare to open the door now that we're here? Brother, why don't we just forget it? I think the person in the house is just a poor and pretentious loser. We don't need to waste time on him." "Shut up. Are you the big brother or am I? I say we open it." So we open it. Daniel, the big man who took the lead in robbing my supplies in the past life, surrounded the dilapidated old house with more than a dozen of his subordinates. Charles hid at home and didn't dare to open the door. He knew that once he opened the door, it would be all over. While dealing with his cronies, he frantically typed and insulted me, saying that I was born a liability, didn't deserve to live at all, and should have died just like my mother earlier. This sentence completely enraged me. I pinned a new comment at the top of the post that revealed his address. "I'm laughing to death. There are really a few morons knocking on my door. They're so stupid. I won't open the door, let you die of heat. If you have the guts, break the door open." As soon as the comment was posted, Charles's angry roar and Daniel's furious shout sounded simultaneously. Stella, you son of a bitch, you bastard, who the hell are you calling a moron? Obviously, Daniel was also paying close attention to that post. With a dark face, he ordered his subordinates beside him, brothers, go for it, break open this bastard's door and teach him a good lesson on how to be a man. Yes, boss. After the sound of the door being pried open came. Charles didn't have the time to scold me anymore. He hurriedly moved tables and stools to block the door. However, the door lock was quickly pried open. One of Daniel's subordinates kicked the door hard, and the tables and chairs that Charles had painstakingly moved were as vulnerable as dominoes. Charles cursed damn it and picked up the chainsaw he had specially bought for self-defense beside him, roaring, "Don't move, I'll saw anyone who comes in. I want to see who dares to come in." He threatened with the chainsaw in his hand, thinking he was fierce. Unexpectedly, Daniel and his group of people laughed mercilessly at him. "Ha ha, boss, look at this moron. He's as skinny as a weakling and is still threatening us here. Hey, you weakling, look at how nervous you are. I'm afraid you've even forgotten how to use the chainsaw, right?" Hearing these taunts, Charles's face became even uglier. He was used to being conceited, and people around him had always only flattered him. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? Charles waved the chainsaw and rushed towards the other side aggressively, but the other side easily dodged. Subordinate No. 1 squatted down and swept Charles's legs with a sweep kick, making him kneel on the ground easily. The chainsaw fell to the ground and was quickly picked up by Subordinate No. 2 and put on Charles's neck. "Who were you calling a moron on the internet just now?" Charles's face instantly lost its color. His body trembled involuntarily, and a pungent smell filled the air. He was actually so scared that he wet himself. 9. Charles didn't know that the group of people he threatened with the chainsaw, they were all vicious criminals who had served their sentences. The subordinate with the lightest criminal record had at least served 2 years in prison. The leader, Daniel, who was 43 years old this year, was sentenced to 23 years in prison for manslaughter and was just released last month. Decades of prison life didn't reform him. Instead, it stimulated his desire to commit crimes. After the extreme heat apocalypse completely arrived in the past life, he was the first to take the lead in disrupting the order, prying open the rooms of the whole building, robbing all the supplies, and tying up everyone and treating them like slaves. His subordinates found 3 pedal-powered generators in a certain household. These 3 generators laid the foundation for his tyranny, under the temperature of 50 degrees Celsius. Daniel could still enjoy the cool breeze of the electric fan and drink ice-cold drinks. There were a total of 84 people in the building, excluding the old people and children who were roasted to death as soon as the extreme heat arrived. The remaining 35 people, regardless of gender, had to take turns pedaling the generators for him. Those who were obedient could exchange for a bite of food and water after pedaling the generator for 10 hours. Those who were disobedient would be starved for 3 days, accompanied by endless humiliation and abuse during that time. Usually, people would easily give in without 3 days. If there were still people who refused to be obedient, it was even easier. Just knock them out and throw them out. Under the temperature of 50 degrees Celsius, they could be turned into mummies in half an hour. During that month of extreme heat, almost all the people who were still alive were barely hanging on by a thread, while he and his subordinates lived a more comfortable life than an emperor. That period of time full of stench and tyranny, like a purgatory, made me shudder every time I recalled it. Fortunately, in this life, it was Charles who would face these people instead of me. 10. After Charles wet himself from fear, Daniel and his group of people taught him a good lesson on how to be a man. The scene of him being beaten until his head was bleeding made me satisfied, and I drank 2 large bowls of iced mung bean soup. The soft and glutinous mung beans were soaked with water. With a gentle bite, I could feel the cool juice spreading in my mouth. Then, taking a sip of the sweet soup, each mouthful was like a cool breeze blowing in the hot summer, with a hard-working air conditioner. I couldn't feel at all that the temperature outside had reached a terrifying 49 degrees Celsius. It was as if I was on vacation in the Arctic. In contrast, on Charles's side, with a swollen face like a pig's head, he trembled and begged for mercy. "Bosses, I know I was wrong. You've vented your anger already. Can you spare me?" Daniel leisurely lay on the sofa, feeling the coolness brought by the air conditioner. When he heard these words, a playful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth with a cigarette in it. "Spare you? It's not impossible." Upon hearing this, a glimmer of hope and a trace of contemptuous sneer flashed in Charles's eyes. However, Daniel's next words were like a basin of cold water, dousing him completely. Daniel smiled sinisterly. "From today on, everything in this room of yours belongs to us, and then we'll spare you. All right, you can get out now," Charles roared. Why? Charles's unwilling howl resounded through the sky, but Daniel and the others didn't care at all. Daniel waved his hand impatiently. And his subordinate sneered and threw Charles out of the door like garbage. Charles fell heavily to the ground, the rough cement floor scratched his head, and the high temperature of over 50 degrees Celsius outside made him sweat profusely. But Charles didn't pass out because of this, because there was still a raging fire of anger in his eyes. The occupation of his supplies made Charles, who thought he could live comfortably and survive the apocalypse smoothly in this second life, feel unprecedented humiliation and anger. At this moment, his hatred for Daniel and his gang exceeded his hatred for me. With great difficulty, Charles sat up, wiped the sweat off his head, removed the blood from the corner of his mouth, and took out his phone to contact his cronies. Charles, am not someone to be trifled with. You're all doomed. 11. While Charles was meticulously planning his revenge, I had a wonderful afternoon nap. I hadn't been this leisurely for a long time. My biological mother passed away due to a heart attack when I was in my sophomore year of high school. As soon as she took her last breath, my scumbag father brought Charles home. That was when I found out that my scumbag father actually had an illegitimate son as old as this outside. In order to protect this illegitimate son, he and my mother pretended to be poor their whole lives, while my mother and I were squeezed into that moldy, dilapidated and small house, worrying about our livelihood. Charles was able to enjoy a life of luxury. Even the money he spent on a pair of shoes was enough for my mother and me to cover our food expenses for 3 months. I still remember that when Charles was first brought home, my scumbag father said to me, "This is your younger brother, and from now on, you must serve him like a young master, otherwise, don't blame me for disowning you as my daughter." Considering my mother's last words asking me to study hard, I swallowed my anger and served them for a year. During that time, I experienced countless instances of Charles's violence and abuse. The deep hatred made me choose a university far away from home as soon as I graduated from high school and cut off all relations with them. In fact, if that dilapidated old house actually belonged to my mother, I wouldn't have come back to claim the inheritance at all. After the extreme heat ends, I'm going to take back that dilapidated old house. 12. Brother Tion. It's a deal. We'll help you get the house back, and you'll give us half of the supplies, Charles's subordinate asked tentatively, double-checking with a hint of unease in his tone. It was already past 9 o'clock in the evening, but the temperature was still as high as 46 degrees Celsius. The air was filled with a searing heat that could almost roast people. With the wounds from the beating during the day and not having had a drop of water since being driven out, Charles felt extremely uncomfortable. Without even thinking, he angrily cursed in response to his subordinate's question. Split, split, split. I've already said I'll divide it. Why keep asking? If you don't trust me, you can get lost. I didn't beg you to come and help me. He felt much better after scolding them, but the faces of his cronies all looked unpleasant. One of the subordinates said with a serious face, "Charles, we brothers came here out of kindness to help you. If you're like this, then it's really not worth it." The others also glared at him, and the atmosphere froze. Thinking about the upcoming plan, Charles's tone softened a bit. "All right, don't worry. Don't you know what kind of person I am? I will definitely keep my word. I'll give you not just half, but 2/3 of the supplies, okay?" Although Charles painted a beautiful picture, there wasn't a trace of sincerity in his eyes or tone. Several subordinates exchanged glances and understood what was going on. One subordinate immediately wanted to leave, but was quietly held back by a few others. "Got it, Brother Tion, we'll follow your lead." A flash of mockery passed across Charles's face, and he commanded proudly, "That's more like it. All right, it's about time. Let's start the operation." 13. In the past life, the water and electricity in the dilapidated old house were cut off on the 6th day after the extreme heat arrived, and today was the 5th day. The order hadn't been disrupted yet, and most of the residents were just complaining incessantly, waiting restlessly for the extreme heat to pass. Only someone like Daniel, who ignored the law, would do the thing of seizing other people's supplies in advance. Charles and his group's plan was simple and brutal, that is, to turn off the power switch and wipe out Daniel and his gang when they came out to check. For this purpose, Charles and the others carried weapons on them, including kitchen knives, baseball bats, bricks, and so on. When the power switch was successfully turned off and the subordinates who came out to check were knocked unconscious one by Charles and his group, Charles showed off, thinking that victory was in the bag. I thought they were really something. Turns out they're just a bunch of idiots. Unfortunately, Daniel wasn't a fool. After sending out 4 subordinates in a row and none of them came back, he immediately realized that something was wrong. He ordered his remaining subordinates to pick up chainsaws and rush out. The rumbling sound of the chainsaws made Charles's subordinates waver. They just wanted to rob the supplies and didn't want to risk their lives. So someone suggested retreating. But how could Charles agree? He immediately scolded that person harshly. However, Charles's behavior aroused public anger. That person sneered and gave a meaningful look, and the people around immediately understood his intention. Charles was still cursing, and the next second, he was stabbed through the back. "You..." Charles stared in disbelief, his voice trembling as he tried to say something, but only a low growl could come out of his throat. Soon, he collapsed weakly to the ground and fainted. Watching the surveillance video, I quickly put down the cola and potato chips in my hand and applauded those who stabbed him. The system, understanding me very well, focused the camera on Charles's face. I didn't hesitate to slap Charles and snatch the property deed back. To that feeling of pleasure was like a photographer finally capturing the perfect moment after a long wait. The image of Charles in despair would become my most cherished treasure. Even more satisfying was that Daniel and his gang had already found Charles and his group, and a chaotic battle was on the verge of breaking out. The monitoring perspective the system gave me could only show within a 10-meter radius of Charles, but that was enough. The extreme heat was like a catalyst, intensifying the tyranny in Daniel's heart. I witnessed with my own eyes those cronies of Charles who had violated me in the past life being caught by the enraged Daniel. They were attacked with knives, with some having their hands chopped off at the lighter end and others having their throats directly slashed at the more serious end. The screams of those beasts were like the horns of the apocalypse, declaring Daniel's tyranny began. Charles, along with several people who weren't killed, were knocked unconscious and tied up by Daniel's subordinates. Just thinking about the living hell they would face in the future made me want to laugh, giggle. I laughed so wildly that the system popped up. Host, your laugh is so ugly. Please have mercy. 14. A month later, the extreme heat ended, and social order began to be restored. I called the police before Daniel and his gang could escape. Charles didn't actually die after being stabbed. After being beaten awake by Daniel and his gang, he dragged on for 3 days, pedaling the generator for them before finally taking his last breath. His subordinates were in a similar situation, and the one with the strongest vitality didn't survive beyond the 4th day. Before Charles died, he stared angrily with his eyes wide open and said something, but I couldn't hear it clearly, and I didn't care either. I only knew that the hatred from my past life had been avenged, and thanks to him, before the system completed its task and disappeared, I successfully intercepted the criminal evidence of Daniel and his group. In fact, even though the apocalypse had arrived, our people's police still remained on the front line to maintain social order. It was just that during the extreme heat period, many means of communication failed, which caused justice to be absent. After the extreme heat passed, I sent the criminal videos of Daniel and his gang to the police overnight. The police responded immediately, fully armed, and in less than 10 minutes, they apprehended Daniel and his group with lightning speed. The people who had been enslaved by them in the building were also rescued, but I didn't have any good feelings towards those people. In the past life, my home was the first one that Daniel pried open. That night, my screams lasted the whole night, but it was as if they were swallowed up by the endless darkness, without getting a shred of sympathy or assistance in return. If Daniel and his gang were the executioners who killed me, then the other people in the building were all accomplices. In the end, Daniel and his group were all sentenced to death. The land of that dilapidated old house was demolished and rebuilt because too many people had died there, and I even received more than 2 million yuan in demolition compensation. I thought the penthouse was unlucky to live in, as it would remind me of bad memories, so I sold it secondhand. So far, the balance in my account has risen to 25 million yuan. Such a large sum of money is enough for me to live a life without worrying about food and clothing for the rest of my life.